Boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's bumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff, Booner, Lukas. It is Monday, January 27th. If you're watching on YouTube, like the stream, support the fellas. And if you're listening, leave a 5-star review. We got a packed show today. We got Kory Woods, like he does every single Monday. And then we have a special guest joining the show to talk about his foundation, talk about his charity event this weekend. We'll get to pick his brain on a couple of things. I'm excited. Tyler Conklin, I guess, New York Jets tight end. We'll see what happens in this offseason. Now he's a free agent, but I'm excited. And we got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, Kelvin Sheppard. Tanner Engstrand. Nope. John Morton is the new
Morton, baby.
We'll break all that down. We had NFL playoffs over the weekend. Chiefs, Eagles, now in the Super Bowl, getting a rematch. Just how it works. But
big Monday.
Big games over the weekend.
Yeah, massive Monday. A lot of news. I'm excited. I know we have some guests coming on, so we're going to talk about it a little later in the show. The new DC, Kelvin Sheppard, John Morton. I'm excited to hear the boys' thoughts. Honestly, and this is one of those things too, boys, and I know like we don't do radio or anything, so we can't get callers yet. I know typically you get callers to get a feel on some of these like decisions. I'm excited to see what some people in the chat, once we get into that segment, how like the people feel about John Morton and Kelvin. Because, yeah, like – typically, boys would say, yeah, we're giving our opinions, and I think we all three have an opinion on the coordinators. I'm interested to see what the vibe around the city of Detroit is and the fan base, because I think they took two, like, just to be my initial, I know we got it segments later, my initial thoughts is, like, everyone thought they were going to go Tanner. Everyone thought they were going to go a veteran DC. It was the complete opposite of what everyone in the fan base talked about for the last 2 weeks or last week. They literally went vet OC and they went rookie DC. So I'm excited to kind of get the thoughts around the city of Detroit on that. I'm pumped up too. Talk to Tyler Conklin, get Kory on the show. Hey, how about this show again, boys? Back-to-back weeks, some big shows here on the program.
Big weeks, fellas. It's like everything is aligning. It feels good. Had to get a fresh cut. I know I said I was going to grow it out a little bit.
It looks good.
Woke up Saturday, had some fucking bedhead. Me and Jeff were talking. I have like colics on the back of my head and like showered. Colics were still out. I was like, fuck this. This is exactly why I'm never growing my hair out again. What happened there, Boone? There you go.
I'm looking at the different lighting. Look, I got a bunch of different settings. This one.
No, not that one. That one looks good. I like that one. That's one I feel like you've had. Do that one.
This is the one I had originally.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, hey, Klotz, the haircut in honor of Travis Kelce going to another Super Bowl. The Travis Kelce cut.
Dude, you know what's crazy is like that's what like not because of Travis Kelce. I was like, I'm gonna do something different with my hair. I was like, Kelsey's hair looked good. Give me something like that. Now I can't stand Travis Kelce.
And that's been your hair for years now.
Yeah. Well, Klotz, you're back. So the hair journey's over. But we will, speaking of John Morton and Kelvin Sheppard, we'll get into that after we talk to Kory, after we talk to Tyler. So stick around. We got a lot of thoughts. We're already texting back and forth in our group chat. So there's plenty of things to talk about today. I know I already saw the comments on the John Morton video I put out today. A lot of differing opinions, a lot of support. Some people weren't a fan. Same kind of with Kelvin. So I cannot wait. It's going to be a great convo when we get to it. But I guess your guys' reaction. I mean, people I see in the chat are already upset. Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs, Eagles. That's who I picked to go to the Super Bowl. I gave it out on our reels for BetUS, and I did it on the Pick'em. Listen, the Bills and Chiefs game was a great game. It honestly came down to literally the couple of last plays. It came down to basically a Dalton Kincaid drop. That probably would have changed the outcome of the game. That now, on the other hand, Eagles Commanders was essentially, a 4-turnover Saquon running all over the place, ass whooping. So two different championship games, but
yeah,
I'm just being honest. The Commanders, very good team. They beat the Lions, but that was coming at some point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's they're not there yet. They're close.
No.
They got to continue to build. But Jaden Daniels, I will say and continue to say, and Booner, you've been hammering this. Like, you didn't lose much stock in him. I mean, the dude's only going to continue to get better. So it was, although the score wasn't close, it was nice. It was nice seeing him play in a championship game. It was. Now next year,
Juicy
belt
J.
ass.
What did I text you boys during? What did I text you? The man's going to win a Super Bowl one day.
Yeah,
he's going to win a
the
Super Bowl.
NFC too.
He's going to be a Super Bowl winner. He will. Like, he looked like it there. I text you guys, like, the only reason that they ended up, like, I know they lost by 20. If you watched the game, you knew they were in the game the whole time. The turnovers, it's the same thing. And I don't know why it's so hard for people in, like, the city of Detroit to comprehend. Like, dude, you turn the ball over, you lose the game. Like, I've been saying it for 2 years on there. It's the turnover battle. You win or lose in the NFL. That's like the most single important stat, in my opinion, is like, if you win the turnover battle, you give yourself you're 80% of the time you're probably winning the football game. Like the Lions, 4 or 5 turnovers. You're not going to win that game. Don't care. You know, like you got lucky in Houston to end up going and winning that game. The Commanders, like, I text you guys, literally, it was a 1 possession game. I text Jeff. Jeff, you said in the group chat, you were like, I don't know if that's it, Booner. But then I broke it down. It's like, dude, they had 9 possessions, scored on 5 of them, and the other, 1 they punt, and 3 of them they have turnovers, and it's still a 1 possession game. Now it's like going into about in the third quarter before the Eagles took off. So it was like, if you don't have those 3 turnovers, you're probably winning the game, and then it makes that whole end of the game different. And then obviously the Eagles just pulled away, and the Commanders ran out of gas. And now you could see that was like an experienced team. Jeff, you're smiling like I'm not wrong. That's dead serious. Like,
I honestly, when I said that, no one, and Klotzy, if Klotzy decides to, I'll go at him. No one will argue with you that turnovers lose games. My thing was when I hear someone say, like, man, if they didn't turn the ball over 4 times, they would have won. It's like, okay, like
well, no, I didn't say that. It was the third quarter.
Like I said to you in the group.
It was the third quarter, and Jaden Daniels, like, the thing was, like, I think it might have been you. Someone said something about Jaden Daniels in the offense. Like this. Oh, it was you. You said the Eagles defense is insane. Like, yeah, it's good, but
very good.
But at the point you send that text, there was 9 possessions, and the Commanders scored on 5 of them. The 3 possessions they turned it over, 2 of them they were marching all the way down the field and about to score again. Like, they almost scored on 7 of their 9 possessions, and 1 was a turnover on special teams, and the other 2 they turn it over while they're marching down the field. So it was like, when you text that, it was like the Eagles defense, yeah, they're good, but like Jaden Daniels is marching down the field almost every possession, and it's like they're staying in this football game. And if they don't have those 2 turnovers, they score on those 2 drives, and they're leading the game. That was like the turning point, and that was why I said that. It was like, yeah, their defense is great. Like, Jaden Daniels was like playing unbelievable. That offense was just every time marching up the field. The field goal, touchdown, turnover. It was just like, come on, dude. Like,
I'll tell you one thing. You know what they didn't do? They didn't allow Brian Robinson to run for 5 a carry. That's what they didn't do.
Yeah. No, Jaden Daniels had to pass the whole time. He had to make plays every time.
Trustway with the dot during that game too.
Crazy.
Pulled out the Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Think about how many 4th down attempts we saw in the AFC and NFC championship game.
Yeah.
Nothing was more frustrating, though. Like, you guys, shout out to Will Shipley on that 60-yard run, too. Once I saw that, I was like, yeah, the Commanders are never winning this game. When I see Will Shipley having a 60-yard sprint. But, hey, Commanders, like we said, they're going to get another playmaker for Jaden. Hopefully can figure out that run defense. They'll be really good for a long time. They'll probably win the NFC East next year because that division, as far as a winner, is a revolving door. But when it comes to the Chiefs and Bills, like, you can say whatever you want about the refs. I thought, especially towards the later part of the game, refs were favoring the Bills a little bit. But if you're Sean McDermott and I'm not blaming the game on Josh Allen, how many times are you going to do a QB sneak on 4th and 1 to the left side when it doesn't work? Over and over and over and over and over again. Like, that's what you're doing. I was like, that was my biggest takeaway, because I was just like, holy hell, like, there was some questionable calls there for sure. But if you just do to the right side one time, like, they literally were so stubborn. They stopped handing the ball off to James Cook. I was like, oh my God, this is the Lions game all over again. Because I picked the Chiefs to win, but I wanted the Bills to win, clearly. Like, that's who everybody wants to win. And James Cook in that third quarter is going ballistic. And it's 4th and 1. It's 4th and inches at the goal line. And you were just beating the same play. Dad, dead, and it doesn't work. And now we have to watch Patrick Mahomes probably win a third straight Super Bowl. That play was like, it was painful to watch as a Lions fan. I was like, what are we doing here? I mean, like, the defense knew it was coming. Best defensive tackle in the NFL. They're gonna stop it. Like,
I will say, Klotzy, you made a statement that the refs were favoring the Bills. No, they never were once in that game. They got a first down. They were up one, about to get into field goal range. That first of all, it was the third down. Dawson Knox, I think it was, or Dalton Kincaid gets a catch for first down, and instead of giving him the first down, which they probably would for the Chiefs, they mark him short, about a half a foot short, and it was supposed to be a first down. And then on fourth down, you give it to Josh Allen, your MVP quarterback, one of the biggest quarterbacks in the NFL, up the middle. He gets the first down clearly. The judge, the ref that's looking at the ball, gives him the first down, seeing the ball across the line. And the ref that couldn't see anything is the one that says, no, put him back. He's short. And then it ends the game, essentially. Like that right there in Klotz, I get it. Maybe there was a couple calls that did go the Bills' way. But when something like that happens when on a third, and that's why there's sometimes in the NFL, I wonder how like players and people think about this sometimes, but like those third downs where refs mark it short or second down marks it short, and then you end up having a punt or you get red. Like that's crazy to me. Like they got that first down and that was at like the 40-yard line. Like you're essentially in field goal range with a new set of downs. And you're up 1 point with 6 minutes left. That was a deciding call by the ref to move the ball back and mark him short when he was clearly like, I think that was the big storyline of the game. Like obviously the Bills had other chances to win it, but like you get that first down, and if the refs give them that first down, that game's almost over essentially. And then the Chiefs don't win. So that's where I get a little frustrated where, hey, the NFL needs to figure something out, because if leagues around the world are able to pinpoint where this is, and tennis is able to look like zoom in on a line for like the NFL should be able to do. I know there's bodies in there. You should be able to find a way, because he was clearly, it was like the Chiefs at the end of the day probably shouldn't have won that game. Obviously you still have to go convert another first down and get a field goal or a touchdown, but like that was ridiculous. That there is a point to where it's like, I don't want to keep hating on the Chiefs, because I respect like what they're doing. It's unbelievable. But there is a point to where like some calls like that, and I feel like a loser complaining about the refs. But like I think the whole world saw that yesterday and went like, what are we doing at this point? Like I think it's a problem in the NFL. Like you guys got to figure out a way to be able to go about those situations a little bit differently.
My thing is just, we've seen this. We saw it before with the Patriots, where it's just complaining about it.
So
but
why not fix it?
Buffalo Bills going into Kansas City, you know that's going to be the case. Like you have to be perfect, and you could see like Josh Allen outside of that first drive did everything he could. Like that first drive, and there was some points you saw in the 2-point conversion where he tried pitching it back to Curtis Samuel. They really talked about the week before and gave him credit for not doing it. Like he was a little rattled, but through the most part, Josh Allen played great. He's throwing a dot to Mac Hound out of all people in big moments. But again, like if you're Sean McDermott, if you're Joe Brady, that loss is simply on you. Like the game plan that you had, if you won't be in those situations, if you hand it off to a guy who gave you 20 rushing touchdowns this year, like hand it off, it was working. They couldn't stop him.
I mean, no, I think with the quarterback sneak, I think they got it like 4 straight times at that point. So I don't know what I'm
even
confused.
like they got stopped.
If you're 4 for 4 though, but if you're 4 for 4 with the quarterback sneak, why wouldn't you keep?
They got blown up at the goal line. That play got blown up a couple of times.
I know, like fourth downs yesterday. I think on their fourth and shorts, I think they kept, if I remember correctly, they kept doing the quarterback sneak and they got it 4 straight times. So let's do it another time. Josh Allen, he got it. Like that's the thing. It's like he got it.
Well, we're gonna have to agree to disagree here. Let's bring in our guest. You guys know who it is. Mondays joins us, covers the Detroit Lions for MLive.com. Get his thoughts on the new OC, new DC, new coaching staff. As always, brought to you guys by BetUS. Please welcome to the show, Kory Woods. Kory, what's going on, my man?
Yo, what's the deal?
Yeah, Kory, so I gotta get your thoughts. Lions made some hires over the weekend. Well, really over the last week. They've been interviewing guys. Not on offense, but on defense mainly. I'll start with the first one. I want to get your thoughts on the first hire. We'll go defensive coordinator, Kelvin Sheppard. You actually were the first one to put us plant that little seed in our head about the possibility that Dennis Allen could still be available. And actually, after you said that, he didn't take the Bears job right away. It took a while. So you were spot on with that. We credited you all week with that. And then now Dennis Allen officially joins the Bears. Yeah. Now the Lions hires someone. So, Kory, you were spot on with that. But what do you make of the internal promotion with Kelvin Sheppard?
Well, first off, I think it was the smart move to make. The thing about like guys like Dennis Allen, Robert Saleh, a lot of the quote-unquote popular names that people wanted the Lions to go after, those would be home run candidates. But again, with guys like that, they're also going to probably be in the mix for head coaching roles again. So then if, let's say, you were to land a Robert Saleh or a Dennis Allen, you're probably looking to replace your coordinator in another year or two. I believe that by promoting Kelvin Sheppard to defensive coordinator, you now do something that you had with Aaron Glenn the past 4 seasons, and that's create some continuity. There's not going to be much of a drop-off in the message because Sheppard has been on Dan Campbell's inaugural staff. He's been here since this thing has been built up. It's not, and it's, again, just because he was groomed by Aaron Glenn to be a defensive coordinator, that doesn't mean they're going to run the same scheme. It just means that he was being prepared for this role. And I think that it shows some good faith as well because they were there. I mean, obviously you were going to lose Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. You're going to probably lose you're probably going to lose some of those other guys that might want to follow those guys to their respective destinations. So being able to keep in a well-respected defensive coach, one that has the respect of the players and in that locker room, one that was right in the huddle, in the foxhole with Aaron Glenn making some of those calls. I think it's a smart move. It shows across the league that if you come to Detroit as a player or a coach, you're going to be given a chance to be groomed for success, and that if you do well, you don't have to necessarily leave the organization to get a promotion. You can get promoted inside the house. So I think it was a smart decision overall.
Yeah, Kory, I do want to kind of ask you the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, John Morton's kind of the one that's supposedly getting hired. Obviously, it's not official, I don't think yet, but the word on the street is he is the new OC. What are your thoughts on that hire? And just kind of on the side to where everyone felt like Tanner Engstrand was going to get that job. And honestly, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it felt like everyone was saying, "Hey, a vet DC in bringing Tanner Engstrand as a rookie OC," and it was opposite. And then Tanner doesn't get that job. What are your thoughts on that whole situation with the offensive side of the ball and how it'll look kind of going into next year?
Well, as you said correctly, it's pretty much spoken about as a done deal, but anything can happen at the last minute. You never know. The one thing that we have heard is that he was flying to Detroit for an interview and they were working to hire him. So I mean, I guess it's with the intention that if everything goes well, they would make him the new offensive coordinator. And so what I think about the hire is a couple of things. For one, I believe that it's smart that, again, Dan Campbell went with somebody that he has familiarity with. They worked together during their time on the Saints under Sean Payton. He also worked here in Detroit for a season. He's actually a guy that is a mentor Tanner. So you have that aspect working there as well. When you look at his time in the league as an offensive coordinator, more time in the league as an offensive coordinator, because he worked for a sole season under on Todd Bowles' staff with the New York Jets. I went and looked at some of those numbers. They didn't really have that great of a staff. So there's that. I believe John was here when things were starting to kind of get rolling with this Lions staff. So he could have still been here had he not went to Denver and taken a promotion. And looking at some of the work he did with Bo Nix, this is a guy that is in Rookie of the Year consideration. So I think it was I'm not so sure about the hire. I guess it was just it's smart to go with somebody that you're comfortable with. Maybe you don't want to promote two people new to this position in your coordinator role. So I also look at it like this too. When you, again, with the Sheppard promotion, there's not going to be too much of a drop off in the message. And then on the offensive side, you're bringing back somebody that has familiarity with this team with what Dan Campbell wants. So I think on that one, it might be a null and void hire, but it's one that makes sense if you just want to kind of tie in the relationships and familiarity.
And Kory, kind of speak on it a little bit more. Like, you look at the coaching room right now, the coaching staff, I should say, it's a revolving door. Guys are going in, guys are going out. When it gets to after the Super Bowl, you're going to see the same thing with players. Is there anybody, when you look at the Lions free agent class coming up this year, you look at guys like Kevin Zeitler, Ife Melifonwu, Tim Patrick, there's a lot of guys that are up for contracts. Is there anybody that you expect to see back in Detroit next year?
Ooh, that's a tricky question, to be quite honest. I think I can see them bringing Zeitler back for sure. I know there were talks there about, whatever he wants to go do as far as his career. They're going to have conversations with him. So I believe Zeitler is a guy that you can expect back. When it gets to some of those other guys, it gets kind of tricky because a lot of those guys could be replaced in the draft. So I would also say, I think they would try pretty hard to bring back Carlton Davis. It's possible he could leave out and go get big money. I could also see him following Aaron Glenn to New York, but I could see Carlton Davis as a guy that you would definitely try to bring back. So, between Davis and Zeitler, I think those would be two priorities on high up on their list to bring back. Some of those other guys, I don't think you have to make them necessarily a priority.
And just real quick, Kory, just to follow up, when you look at AQM, Al-Qadeed Muhammad, do you think he's a guy just because of his late season success that they try to bring back next year, or he's a guy that you think draft that can replace that void?
I think some of these he's a guy I think you want to bring back. That's another name, but just for depth reasons, maybe you want to go ahead and look in the draft or in the free agency or in the trade market and add another starter alongside Hutch. I mean, depending on what you decide to do with Zadarius Smith. But I think that, yes, keeping Muhammad is just for depth reasons and the way that he played throughout the end of the season. That is definitely a guy you want to bring back. Because, again, you need to build depth on this team, especially with how they were decimated on the defensive side of the ball. So if you're able to retain a guy like him on a favorable deal, he's somebody you definitely want to bring back.
Hey, Kory, let me ask you this. All right, you're looking at the NFC Championship, the AFC Championship games. A lot of talk recently has been, is Jared capable of bringing a Super Bowl to Detroit? And I know you don't have to answer that directly, but based on what you've seen out of Jared Goff and coming off the playoff game he came off of, where are you at, and where do you think the fan base should be at with faith in him that he'll be able to get it done, seeing the level of quarterback play in the conference championship games?
I think you should be pretty confident that Jared Goff can at least get you there. I mean, let's look at last season's playoff. Jared Goff didn't play poorly last season.
He didn't.
That playoff run wasn't on him. He played some of his best football. So, I just think that had some play calling went in a different direction last NFC Championship. The Lions could have went to the Super Bowl that year. They went into the half with a 17-point lead. When you look at this year, when you look at the Commanders game, Goff just unfortunately had picked that day to have a bad game. But on top of it too, I think I said this before on the show. If I didn't, I apologize. But I believe still that he was concussed after that hit. I mean, just because he cleared protocol does not mean that he was still not feeling the effects from it. I know there's this thing about, mobile quarterbacks, you need to go in this direction, you need to go in that direction. I mean, when you look at the numbers, these are just facts. Goff was second in passing yards. I believe he was fourth, and he was fourth in touchdowns. Lamar Jackson only threw four more touchdowns in him. He was second in. No matter of fact, I think he was first out of all the players that played all 17 games. I believe he had the top completion percentage, and he had the second highest passer rating. He just had a bad game against the Commanders. So when you look at those metrics, it's why he's an MVP candidate. So if you can't, why wouldn't you think he's gonna be able to get you to a Super Bowl again? What is the alternative? Really, because some of the quarterbacks that some people want to compare him to, he's not a Patrick Mahomes, right? He's not a Lamar Jackson, he's not a Josh Allen. Well, no, Sherlock, there's only 3 of those. 29 of the teams in the league would want one of those guys. So it's you know what I'm saying? It's just like you just hope that he just does not have one of those stinkers that he had, and he had 2 of them this year. One game they won, this game they just unfortunately didn't. But I think he can at least get you there, whether the Lions win or not, whatever. But he just had a bad game. And, from things I've heard in passing, he might not have been feeling well going to the game as well. So it's a lot of things out there. But,
Yeah, Kory,
I think golf can definitely get you there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Kory. I'm all in on that. I want to ask you a question because we had this conversation last Friday. It was kind of a big debate on our show, actually. The people watching know, but Jameson Williams, he's due to where he can get a contract extension this off season, and obviously over the last few years, everyone knows kind of the suspensions and all of that. But then this year, he came on the scene and he looked really good this year. What are your thoughts on the Jameson Williams extension? Do you think it gets done? Because the conversation, I was on the side to where I was like, hey, get the deal done now so you're ahead of the market knowing what he can do. And the fellows were kind of on like, hey, want to see another year out of him before we pay him some money and extend him. What kind of side do you fall on when it comes to the Jameson Williams contract conversation?
It's a trick. That's a tricky one. I'll say this much. If you're able to get Jameson right now at a favorable deal, then I would say go ahead and do the extension. Aside from that, if he's looking for the big money deal, I mean, hey, you're in a position where I think you're holding the cards and you can kind of like just say, hey, go earn it, go prove it. I mean, because as much as he's a young kid, he's made some immature mistakes and he tries to do well. At the end of the day, the NFL is a business and the best ability is availability. And he has had his, aside from injury, he has had his availability impact in Detroit based off of bad decisions. And that's just is what it is. So I'm not going to sit up here and say guys like him with his speed are a dime a dozen, but there is a possibility that you're able to go out in the draft at some point and get another receiver at a discount where you can get him on a rookie contract and he can provide some type of production, maybe, who knows, maybe better. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th rounder. So Brad Holmes is known to be able to find talent anywhere. So I don't think there's right now a rush to go ahead and pay him his money, especially since he just got his first 1,000-yard season. I would say right now you're in a really good position to go ahead and just roll the dice and see what happens next year, unless you're able to get him on a really, really favorable deal. And I think that I don't see that happening. I can see him wanting to go get that big deal because he has the talent.
Yeah. Well, Kory, appreciate you taking the time today. As always, you always say, I got you. I'll join the show. So appreciate that. Keep up the great work. Follow Kory on X at Kory Woods. And check out his stuff on MLI.com. Kory, we'll talk to you soon, brother. Good
Appreciate you, Kory.
There you go.
Appreciate you, Kory. As always.
Yep, taking the time to join the fellas. And listen, man, we got a special guest today, and we talked about it, and it's going to be great. We're going to be able to talk about his event this upcoming weekend, which we will be at, how you guys can support it, and that is. Now he's entering that free agency. So we're going to talk to my man about what the future holds. But hey, listen, this is Chesterfield's own. All right. This is the area I grew up in. LCN legend. New York Jets was tight end. We'll see what happens. That is Tyler Conklin. So please welcome to the show. Let's go, Tyler. How you doing?
Fellas, what up?
Hey, Tyler, can you turn it the other way? Like the long way?
I can do whatever you need.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, we're good. Tyler, number one, thanks for joining. And for people, real quick, I want to kind of talk about what's going on this weekend. So people, obviously from the Metro Detroit area, Tyler and his wife Scotty are doing something with Tyler Conklin Foundation. They'll be at Townhouse Detroit on Saturday, February 1st from 12 to 3. You can get your ticket. Ticket link will be in the description. And you purchase your tickets, all going to charity. It's going to be a great event. People are going to be there. Live music, buffet, drink. One comes with the ticket. You get a drink, and there's a pop-up barbershop. So you can go check that out, helping really just Michigan communities. And it'll be helping children with hair loss, Michigan, and Dog Aid Detroit, which is something that Tyler and his wife Scotty are very passionate about. So we're excited to be out there this weekend. We're going to help promote it as much as we can. But I want to ask you to kind of start off. How did the Tyler Conklin Foundation kind of start? I know you and Scotty kind of got into it and wanted to help give back to the community, but kind of tell me the story behind that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I got in the NFL, like when I got to Minnesota, there's a bunch of old guys, right? Kyle Rudolph, Kirk Cousins, Harrison Smith. There's a lot of guys that have been in the league for for a really long time, right? Adam Thielen and a lot of them did a lot of different stuff in the community, had foundations, and like at that time, early in my career, I kind of, looked around like trying to like I wanted to do it, and it never really made sense. Like I wanted to have a foundation, I wanted to be able to help in the community, I wanted to find a way to, make it relate to my life and now Scotty's life. So it's something I always kind of wanted to do, and then finally, I feel like I just got to the point in time with kind of my team and support system that I have that we were able to kind of pull it off, even though it has been hectic with a baby and whatnot. But and free agency and moving and a lot of things that could come on, happen this year. So it's been a lot, but it's just something we always wanted to do. And this year we kind of had the opportunity to get it started, and it's about time to cut the hair off. So we thought it'd be a good way to kind of kick off their foundation and donate to a couple good causes, with it being Dog Aid and Michigan Hair Loss of Michigan, and yeah, so that's kind of how it came about. It's just something I've always wanted to do, and the opportunity kind of arose to finally do it.
Hey, Tyler, good to meet you. Booner here. You mentioned you're cutting your hair off. I mean, that's an iconic flow in the NFL right now. It's the Conklin flow. Are you going to grow it back? Or is like what's going to happen with the hair here?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it short, man. I just think it's all. I mean, I've had it for 8 years. My junior year of college, I grew it out, and I was like, I want my hair to be out the back of my helmet. That was my thing. Like, I just wanted to just for football, and once I finally grew it out, it just kind of just got attached to it and couldn't cut it. And now I'm at the point the wife's been bugging me for like 2 years now to cut it, and she'll probably regret it once it's gone. But she wished for it at one point, and the closer it gets, the more nervous I get about it. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it can't be that bad.
Hey, you stayed strong, Tyler. 2 years is a hell of a long time to have the female like nagging at you to cut it. I give you credit there. But if people aren't going to the event, what's another way that
just
they can donate?
Just to know when that happens, that's your. I mean, there's a QR code on a lot of different things I posted. You can do it through the TC Foundation, I don't know email exactly, tcfoundation83@gmail.com, which is connected to the foundation Zelle. You can buy a ticket and show up and, take part in the auctions and get a haircut and, everything that we're doing down there, all of it or part of it goes to charity, whether it's the buying drinks or getting a haircut or, the money we raise throughout the auction. So, come out and, I'd love to have everybody there in person to support and, have a good time, have some drinks and whatnot. But, yeah, there's a lot of different ways. You can reach out to me on social media, or, I've posted about it a ton. So, there's a handful of options.
Well, I want to ask you, Tyler, just really, number one, talk a little bit about this past season. I know last time I got a chance to talk to you, me and Mike asked you about Robert Saleh coming in. This year was up and down. You faced a lot of adversity just as a team. Number one, how are you feeling coming off the year you had, but just kind of overall the year going into kind of free agency? We'll get to the free agency part, but how are you feeling after a long season?
Yeah, man, it's been an interesting 3 years in New York. I like to think that a lot of things that have happened over the last 3 years don't happen in a ton of other places. It's been 8 or 9 different quarterbacks, 2 head coaches, 3 offensive coordinators. A lot of ups and downs, starting from year one. And then Aaron comes in year 2, and obviously, he gets hurt, and that doesn't go how we all planned it. And then we go into year 3 with him healthy and high hopes, and Devontae coming out and all those different things. And, it still doesn't go the way we want it to go or the way that anybody expected it to go. So it's been interesting. You never could have expected it to play out the way it did. But it did. And, there's good moments, but obviously when you don't win football games, it's not as enjoyable. So from a team standpoint, I'd say it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah, Tyler, if you too, I know you are a free agent coming up, but like with the Aaron and Glenn hiring there in New York, are you familiar with AG and kind of everything that comes with him from Detroit? And if so, what are your thoughts on, him coming in to be a head coach there for the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about AG. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things from, players I know in Detroit, when this whole thing started and they were going through interviews and stuff, and just I watched a couple of his interviews, some of the Hard Knock stuff, just a lot of stuff that resurfaced as he kind of went through the head coaching cycle. And I was actually talking to Scotty's dad, and that's why I figured we would, or I thought we would hire, and it worked out. And you know, I'm happy about it. Just listening to the way he talks, the way he carries himself, the fact that he obviously played in the league at a high level for a long time, and you know, I think that also helps. You know, I think it's an exciting hire, and I think it makes it even better that you have somebody that, you know, wore that jersey and you know, wants to bring glory back to New York. And you know, if you go to New York and you win, I mean, you become immortalized, really. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for him.
Hey, I just want to throw this out there, Tyler. Hypothetically, I'm not tampering, but if you were to play for the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell, thoughts on MCDC, and I'm sure you're familiar being from the area, but hypothetically, if you were to play for him, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you guys got a hell of a tight end in Laporta right now, right? But yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell, when I was coming out of Central Michigan, he was the tight end coach for New Orleans at the time, and he came up and put me through a private workout. And you know, I was actually just going through all my contacts, sending out texts about the foundation event, and I still had his number in there. I'm sure it's probably changed by now, but you know, when I was coming out, that's where I wanted to go. I'm like, I want to go to New Orleans. Like, I want to play like that. He would be a good coach to play for. And then when the hiring cycle with him came up and Detroit hired him, I was pumped about it because I had that little bit of experience and got to know him throughout that process. And you know, a lot of my best friends are huge Lions fans, and you know, I kind of was talking. You know, some people were skeptics, some people were excited, but I feel like I was talking a lot of people off the ledge just about, you know, how good of a coach I thought he was going to be at that time. When everybody's like, "Oh, we're hiring a tight end coach as a head coach." You know, my little bit of experience with him coming out, you know, throughout that process was amazing. So if at some point in my career I got to play for him, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, would be awesome. Would love to have you back in Detroit, Tyler, that's for sure. But when you're looking in free agency, you talked about kind of your situation with the Jets. What are you looking for when I mean, NFL free agency is, I assume, an exciting time. What are like the core things that you're looking for, whether it's returning to New York or in other teams? What are the things that you're specifically looking for that new team to have?
Yeah, I mean, free agency is interesting. You know, going through it the first time, like you think you kind of know how it's going to go. You have these teams that need tight ends. You're like, oh, I'm going to end up in one of these spots. And every place I thought I was going to end up last time, I don't even think I talked to. And New York was the last place I thought I'd be, and I ended up in New York. So I kind of just tried to enjoy this little, you know, a couple months off before it, so I can, you know, because whatever I think's going to happen probably won't happen. But for me, it's just really, you know, where can I get paid where people value me? I think that's, you know, I think everybody's lying if they don't want to get paid, right? I think, you know, being paid what I think I deserve would be a nice thing. Whether that happens or not, you never know. But two, really just the opportunity to, you know, keep playing good football. And you know, when I went to New York, my big thing was like, I wanted to take the next step in my career. And I feel like I really didn't get to do that in a lot of ways. Just, you know, we didn't have the best situation offensively for a couple years. And, you know, we were at the bottom of the league in offense. And it's just hard to, you know, put up the numbers and do the things you want to do when as a team you're struggling. So I feel like I feel like I got to play good football and I did some good things. But I'd like the opportunity to go out there and prove that I can do a lot more than I've done so far. So that's a big thing for me. That's probably the biggest thing for me, is being able to go out there and show people I can, you know, do more than what people think. And that's probably really the main two things, like being able to go out there and play some good football and have the opportunity to keep taking the next steps in my career, and, you know, get paid decently would be nice. And, you know, the rest of it just is what it is.
Hey, Tyler, you know what, man? I'll say it because you don't want to say it. One of the most underrated tight ends in the league, man. Like, I'm just going to say this too. He's helped me a lot in fantasy. I will say one of the this man, consistent, what he's done in New York, puts up the numbers. And you've played as a playmaker yourself. You play with playmakers, man. Like, and that's the thing now with New York. You play with Garrett Wilson. You got Devontae Adams. You were in Minnesota. You play with great wide receivers. I want to ask you about just Garrett Wilson. He seems like, and I always go at it, you know, we talk about it, and Klotz, Lukas is a big Ohio State guy, so he's big on Garrett Wilson. But what makes him so special? I know he's had a frustrating year too. They bring in Devontae, his targets go down, but what makes a guy like that so special?
Oh, man, it's hard to kind of put into words, right? Because like when the first time I ever saw him, like, wow, he just moves unlike anybody I've ever really seen move. I think the first thing is, like, Garrett's just a really good dude. You know, sometimes I feel like the New York media in general always tries to paint somebody in a bad light or a certain light. And he's one of the best dudes I've ever been around, one of my favorite teammates. And he's just special in all aspects, right? He can kind of do everything you need someone to do. After the catch, he's good. He can go up and get the ball. He can make contested catches. His release package is, top tier. There's really nothing he can't do. And you can't say that about everybody. And then just even like with everything that happened, right? Like we have been in a tough situation in New York for a while. Like quarterback situation was rocky for a couple of years. Like I said, we had 8 quarterbacks in 3 years, 9 quarterbacks in 3 years, whatever it was. 3 different offensive coordinators. Like for anybody, especially a young player, that's a lot to deal with. And he still found a way to have an incredible start to his career. So I think that speaks volumes.
All right, Tyler, I got a question you've probably been asked a million times. Welcome to the NFL moment. What was it for you? I know you were in Minnesota for 4 years. Did you have like one of those moments where you're, whether it was like a player that you were playing against, or like what was that moment for you where you're like, oh, this is the big leagues now?
It would probably be against Green Bay. Like I think it was the second game of the season in Green Bay. David Morgan was our blocking tight end in Minnesota. He was the tight end too, and he got banged up, hurt his knee. And I kind of went in there at the beginning of the game. It was like the first play. I was playing F. We were in like a wing set, and I couldn't hear shit. It was loud as hell in Green Bay. When you're like, even at tight end in general, like it's hard to hear. Like that one spot moved over from tackle makes it a lot more difficult. So being on the wing made it even more difficult. And Clay Matthews was lined up outside, and we ran like inside zone, I think. And he just like ran through the V of my neck, and I'm like, damn, like I gotta figure this out pretty quick here. So that's like the one moment where I'm like, damn, like that. I weirdly always remember that moment of like, crap, I have to figure it out if I want to stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could not imagine being in a situation where like, hey, go block Clay Matthews. I'd probably shit myself, Tyler. But
yeah,
kind of carrying on that
conversation. I was so late off the ball. And I'm just like looking around like I got
Yeah.
probably look like an idiot, but
hey, would have done better than us for sure. Kind of like carrying on that conversation.
It's my job. I hope so.
Out of all the people that you've played against, do you think the craziest dude in the NFL? Because you're tight end, you're going up against linebackers, safeties, nickelbacks, defensive ends, defensive tackles. Who do you think is just like the biggest maniac on the defensive side of the ball you played
like
against?
Maniac, like personality maniac, or like maniac as in just like player, like freak player, really good player?
I'll let you answer that one. I'll let you answer that one.
I don't know. The one game I always weirdly remember was we played the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football when I was in Minnesota, and Randy Gregory was there. And that was the year he played really well. And I remember leaving that game like, damn, like I wouldn't be mad if we didn't play Randy Gregory again for a really long time. He just never took a play off, like run game, field goal, anything. Like I remember being on field goal and he was just trying to take my head off, and I'm like, dude, like it's field goal, give me a break. That was just one game where I'm like, man, this guy's fast, he's strong, he wants to hit right now, he wants to play, like he's playing physical. I just remember leaving that game like, damn, like that's a guy right there. And I know things probably, they haven't really, they didn't go where people thought they were going to go when he signed his big deal and stuff, but that game was one that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, but before we get you out of here, Tyler, you mentioned it, and I want to get your thoughts, man. Just kind of pick your brain. Sam Laporta, like the Lions got it. And I want to just, this is the perspective that we'll never understand. Like, how hard is it as a tight end, like a young tight end, to just walk into the league and be productive? Like, especially with how much responsibility you have playing tight end. What do you make of kind of a young player like Sam Laporta, kind of what he's done in Detroit?
Yeah, it's hard, right? People don't, like, a lot of times you don't see tight ends really take that jump until year 3 a lot of times. Just the responsibility from a pass pro, run game, route tree. A lot of times, like no matter if you're playing or not as a rookie, you're still playing some special teams a lot of times. There's just a lot of stuff you gotta handle. I do think he's obviously a hell of a player. And a lot of it, a lot of times it's situation, right? Like he's a smart guy. I've heard a lot of good things about him. Jeremy Ruckert trained with him coming out. I think they came out in the same class or whatever. Yep. And he thought he was an awesome guy. But when you have like a support system, Ben Johnson was obviously awesome for Detroit, and getting the tight end involved in the run game, him being good in the run game also obviously helped him in the pass game and the way the Lions run the ball. So I think the fact that he's just an all-around tight end, which I really respect because you don't see a lot of those anymore, and the fact that he plays in the run game, plays in pass pro, and plays in the pass game, you don't see it often. So to see him do that at a high level, and then the fact that it pays off and really helps him become an explosive player because the offense is the way the offense is, and he can do everything on the offense. I mean, it is really impressive, especially to be that young.
Yeah, no doubt. And I want to say again, before we get out of here, man, appreciate your time. Again, we'll be out there Saturday for all the people tuning in now live and tuning in after. Link will be in the description. Get your tickets. If you can't make it, like Tyler said, now I have the email right here for you guys. It's tcfoundation83@gmail.com. You can donate directly. Go to our social media, find ways you can help out. There'll be an auction for items. You can hang out, you can get a haircut. You don't even need a ticket to get the haircut, the pop-up barbershop. So yeah, they'll take care of you over there. I'll see you this weekend, Tyler. We're excited for it. Thanks for all you do, man, and thanks for the time today.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
There you go. T-Con.
Appreciate it, Tyler.
Chesterfield legend.
Appreciate
I'm
you,
going to
man.
keep saying it. Chesterfield legend, dude. Appreciate his time as always.
Man.
Yeah, dude. Hey, it's with a guy like Chesterfield's not too many. All right. Tyler's one of those guys. I mean, that guy's like a fucking god over here. All right. What he's done in the league. He's a great player, dude, and just a great dude, honestly.
Yeah.
Great dude. And we'll be out there, like I said, Saturday. So get your tickets coming out. You'll see there'll be special guests there, like I said. And I cannot wait for it, man. It's great. I mean, we get to cover events, but to cover like events that are not only fun events, it'll be a fun time, but it's for a great cause. Like especially our friend being Tom Grossi, that dude's all about great causes.
Yeah.
It inspires us to help
Got
out.
to find a way to help out, man.
Yes.
Use the platform that we have for something good, right?
Yeah.
Like we've been given a good platform. Now we got to use it for something good. Shout out Tyler too for joining the show. Hey, Chesterfield legend. You got Tyler Conklin, Jeff Iafrate, Michael Gentry. Hey, there's a roster there. I mean, I might move to Chesterfield so I can get on this 11-man roster and have one of the. Typically I'm the tight end. I got my spot taken. Tyler Conklin, he gets that spot. I'll be like, I don't know, maybe a right tackle.
Long snap, Boone.
Yeah.
Long snapper. Oh, I got to play multiple positions out here. Maybe I'll be the center and long snapper. I don't know.
Yep. Hey, Tywan Jones. That's
Chesterfield.
Actually Anchor Bay. That's my brother. Same graduating class. Like, dude, Tywan Jones used to hang out at the house all the time. He's a great dude. He's awesome. Good dude. Played for the Jets too. Actually, I don't know what it is with the Jets.
He hung out at your house.
Yeah. When the house I grew up in. Yeah, my brother was friends with him. Yeah, he was a great dude. So
dropped that like that. Yeah, he just used to hang out at the house. It was like the house, bro.
Yeah, no, he's a great dude. Hey, Chesterfield's got some underrated people here. And by the way, big shout out also to Michael Gentry hooking that up because Mike actually grew up with Tyler. They both went to Lance Cruise North. So people always ask, "Where's Mike?" Hey, Mike's working in the back. Yeah, he's making moves for the boys, and he hooked it up for us. So that was awesome. But boys, we got a lot to get to. John Morton, new OC, Kelvin Sheppard, new DC. Teased it at the beginning of the show. We're going to get to it. So everyone in the chat, get fired up. I need thoughts on both hires. We'll start with the first one that happened, which was Kelvin Sheppard becoming the new defensive coordinator. And listen, I guess I'm on the stand because I was hammering the last 2 weeks since the Lions lost, or last week, whatever it is. I lose track of time now. I didn't want two rookie coordinators. You don't have two rookie coordinators. Oh. It was just flipped on what I thought. And I saw comments on the video I made or the live stream I did today talking about Kelvin Sheppard. And, people were like, what does it matter if it's on the offense or defense, if it's a rookie? Well, my biggest thing was, Dan Campbell's already going to be involved heavily on offense. So my inclination, which I was wrong, it happens, believe it or not, I was wrong. That it was going to be on defense. They were going to hire someone on defense with more experience. Obviously, they pivot to Kelvin Sheppard. And I think the more I think about it, it really has nothing to do with Kelvin Sheppard. Like, it could be Lukas Klotz or Booner as DC. It was more of the inexperienced thing. Like Larry Foote was interviewed, no experience. I still would have had the same reaction. So I don't want, Kelvin is someone I want to root for so bad. He's such a good dude. Great human being. Everyone speaks highly about him. Like Pat McAfee today, they talked about him for 5 minutes on the show. Great dude. My thing is this. I don't care. At the end of the day, I don't care who's calling plays as long as this defense is where I think it'll be. Okay. Whether my preference is rookie or not. If this defense can be a top 10 unit this year and be good, I'm good. I will get over it. My whole rookie DC tantrum, it's over. But that's the expectation. I don't care who it is. If it was Dennis Allen, I'd expect the same thing. If it's Kelvin, I'm expecting the same thing. So do I have my own concerns and I guess a little bit of skepticism when I expect them to make the Super Bowl and you could potentially be squaring off with Andy Reid on the other side and you got a rookie DC? Yes. But I'm happy for Kelvin. I am. Like, I understand in any business when you promote from within, it kind of inspires guys around you to be like, man, I could get this job one day. Like, I get that. But that's my expectation, guys. It's Kelvin Sheppard. I'll get over it. I wanted a veteran. But as long as his defense is good, I'll get over it. So
Klotz,
expectations don't change for me.
I'll go because I know this. I'm going to let you go and do your thing. I just want to say a couple things with the Kelvin Sheppard thing because shout out Klotzy too. Now it was like it wasn't like it was like, hey, a couple months ago, Klotz was like, hey, give me Kelvin Sheppard. It was probably like 2+ years ago that Lukas Klotz came out and said Kelvin Sheppard needs to be the next DC. And one of the first posts I've ever seen about Kelvin Sheppard getting at our old employer we put a post up about Kelvin Sheppard being the next DC in line, and Kelvin Sheppard himself liked the post and hinted a little like, hey, I want that job. So things come full circle a little bit. And my thought process on this, Jeff, I get it. And over the last week, we had the conversations. Hey, don't want the rookie. Don't want a rookie DC. Like, I get it. But this is a guy out of anyone. If you're like, hey, we want a rookie DC to come in. Having a guy like Kelvin Sheppard, like we've talked about this for 2 seasons, him being the next man up for 2 years. And I mentioned something last week. And I think that when he got hired, it was the first thing that popped in my head. Was if a Larry Foote gets hired, right, boys? Like we were like, hey, who would you rather have? And I said Larry Foote because you get him and Kelvin in the building. But if Larry Foote got hired, that shows. Like I trust Dan Campbell. Like Dan's done a great job after his first round of hires when he first became the head coach of the Detroit Lions. Dan got rid of some guys, but he has brought in an amazing staff. Jeff, we had that convo on Saturday about that. Like, hey, after the first guys he's let go, every single time he's made a hire, the man's hit a home run on all of them. Positional coaches, Ben Johnson, whatever it's been, he's hit a home run. I trust Dan Campbell, right, to make the right decision. If he would have brought in Larry Foote or if he brought Dennis Allen in, guess what? We know Dan doesn't feel that Kelvin Sheppard's like that he's ready. The fact that he got hired and it happened kind of as fast as it did within a couple of days. I know the process, the way it goes. My guess is Larry Foote had the interview because you got to interview. I think more than one coach to get the job. Like, I don't think you could just be like, here's the job. I think you have to interview guys. My guess, they knew Kelvin was going to get the job from the jump. They knew he was ready. He's been ready, and Dan trusts him. If Dan Campbell trusts him, boys, and I know this is an easy way out, I'm in. He's ready to go. And yeah, he does have to go prove it, Jeff. Like he has to. As a rookie DC, especially, like this isn't college football. You're a mid-major. This is the NFL. It's the National Football League. There's only 32 defensive coordinator positions in the NFL. That's it. Like it's the best of the best. So Kelvin's gonna have to be ready to go, and I think he will be. I think he's gonna honestly. It might take a little bit. And Jeff, I know you were this morning. You were in your live show that you were doing on Mondays, saying like there can be like you got to be ready to go. I think like you look at like even this year, the OC with Ben Johnson, slow start. Like they weren't top 5 right away. They were top 12 and in the offense. So I think there's going to be a period, just the first 3, 4, 5 games of the season where you're going to see Kelvin kind of getting the hang of this thing, figuring out, hey, this is how I want to approach my schemes. Like he's never done it before. He's building his own defense for the first time ever. So he's going to have to figure out his schemes, how he wants to approach different offenses, all of that. I think it'll take a little bit of a time. But I honestly, boys, like I think when he does get going, I think Kelvin Sheppard's going to be a hell of a coach. I really do. I think he's a great motivator, and I think he knows his X's and O's with the best of them.
Yeah. I'm with you, Boone. Would I have honestly, because I've been huge on Kelvin Sheppard, would I have preferred Dennis Allen? Of course, I think everybody would have. But when you talk about Kelvin Sheppard, fellas, that's a guy that I at least trust in keeping this defense going in the right direction because he's been here. But not only has he been here, he's been here with these players and he's developed so many of these linebackers. Like if you look outside of Jamal Adams, Like, I mean, Jamal Adams even had a good game. There's been no failures at the linebacker position. I think when you look at Kelvin Sheppard, you've seen nothing but growth and growth and growth. And the other reason why I love him is he's going to be staying on the field with a guy that, when you talk about on the coaching staff, was on the field. Like, he was a former player, veteran in Buffalo. He wasn't a great player, but he was a very good role player for the Buffalo Bills. And that's what this team needs when you're talking about, okay, new guy, inexperienced. Yes, I'll give you that 100%. But he's developed with all these players, just as through all of them in their coaching career. And I think even if you had Tanner Engstrom on the offensive side, he'd still have to go up against Vic Fangio. He'd still have to go against Todd Bowles, who even Ben Johnson struggled against. So I think either way, first-year OC, they're going to struggle. But Kelvin Sheppard has been the guy that's been in AG's ear. So I think this would be the Tanner Engstrom of the defensive side of the ball for the Lions. So I think the aggressiveness of this defense is going to stay the same. The play style of this defense is going to stay the same. For the majority part, the players are going to stay the same. The only thing that's going to take a decline, because Kelvin Sheppard is a step down from AG, especially week 1 going into next season, is going to be Kelvin Sheppard. But a lot of that is going to stay the same. The nucleus of this defense is still there. The mindset of this defense is still there. So to your point, Hefe, put up a top 10 defense, I will be A-okay. And with Kelvin Sheppard at the DC, yeah, there could be rough points, but I'm willing to put my neck out there and say, with Aiden Hutchinson being healthy next year, guaranteed lock that this Detroit Lions defense is a top 10 unit next year. Not looking at PFF stats, but when you look at that defense, is it playing like a top 10 defense, yes or no? You're going to be saying yes.
And real quick, John, I'm sorry. I just want to throw this out there with that point, Klotz, because that's a great point. Like, again, they might start the year at top 20, right? Kelvin's going to get them into a top 10. I do believe that. And I think, like, typically, like, it's tough, Jeff, to the point of, hey, rookie DC, it's tough. How often does a rookie defensive coordinator get a roster like this instantly? And I know there are still pieces, and I know Terrion's still young, but like, how often in the NFL does a rookie defensive coordinator get the best safety duo in the NFL, the best edge rusher in the NFL, one of the best linebacking cores in the NFL, some of the best defensive tackles in the NFL? Like what you know what I'm saying? Like, he has it set. Like, he's gonna be able to have success. It's about, I think, for Kelvin Sheppard, what I'm looking for, it's like improvement throughout the year. Like, we know as a rookie DC, like, he's doing things for the first time. It's like Terrion, but obviously I know it's your Super Bowl contender, so it needs to be quicker. But with the roster you have, he has a little bit in the offense. You have a little bit of room for, hey, this is my room to be able to learn. And that, like, I think, like, halfway through the year, you need to look at it and be like, hey, this thing has to start. You need to be rolling. And I think, like, even if he's not rolling right away, I think the pieces you have defensively will be able to keep you alive to look like top 15 anyways. And then obviously I think when it comes down to it, by the second half of the year, man, like this year, like, Jeff, I know the injuries, but even outside of that, the last 2 years, how confident were you in this defense with the corners? And, like, you never were. You need to make sure Kelvin, his number one priority needs to be like, hey, we need to make sure we look like a playoff defense halfway through the year. And I think he will be able to do that. I do.
Yeah, I the only thing, because I think me and you can break bread. I think I'm a little farther than you because
love some good bread.
I think the only reason I'm a little, like, my opinion, I'm willing to give him grace. Like, absolutely. And it's not all on him. It's on Brad. Like, you got to get this man help at corner. You got to get this man, you know what I mean? Get him right. But I think half is a little too much. I don't know if I'd give him half the season to get it right.
No, I don't think it's like, I'm throwing that out there as like a point to where it's like, you need to see growth through the year.
Yes.
And at some point, whether it's halfway through the year or it's, 6 games through the year, you need to start seeing it roll over.
I would say by like a quarter, because you know how it is. We're sports fans. You can't make the playoffs in the first, quarter of the year, but you can get yourself in a tricky situation in the first couple of games, and especially with a tougher schedule. So, and again, I want to make that very clear. That's where I was going next with this. It's not all on Kelvin. Like, Brad's got to get him. Like, okay, are you bringing Davenport back? What's going on at edge? You bringing Zadarius? Is he next year? Make sure he has a pretty complete defense. And then, of course, Casey Rogers, I think, is going to be kind of an underrated piece in this because he's the defensive line coach, but he was a defensive coordinator at one point. So this is a guy that has some experience. So I think he's going to be kind of the Johnny Morton of Ben. Like, when Ben was first OC, John Morton was kind of his, like, hey, he was his right-hand man helping him out, and then he left, and Ben kind of just soared after that. I think that's going to be Casey Rogers, like, kind of, hey, mentoring him a little bit. Like, this is, I've been a DC before. I kind of know what to expect. I think that's why they brought in Casey Rogers. Like, I think he's a great defensive line coach, but I think Casey Rogers' experience as a DC before, I think helps out. Yeah, it helps out. Like, it's hard for me because I love Kelvin. Like, and Klotz was hit this so early. Like usually you get to take like 6 months in advance. You're like, hell yeah. Like, this dude's been cooking this for 3 years. So like 2 years. So like credit to Klotz for nailing this one. Like, I love Kelvin. It's just really the rookie part on the defensive side of the ball. Knowing that's been like the missing piece. If that's where I'm coming from. It's like, okay, guys, this offense is going to be top 10 at the minimum, because you cannot mess this offense up. It's going to be hard. Matt Patricia as OC probably could, but it's going to be hard to mess this offense up. On defense, like Booner said it, it's the first time you've really had this many good pieces. And it's like, all right, Kelvin, like let's see it. And he knows it. Like, I think if you ask Kelvin, he understands the expectations. Like, he understands that. He's been a player. He's been under AG. He knows what the narrative is. Like, he understands what comes with the job, especially on a Super Bowl team. So this isn't new to him, but that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. But yeah, it's not just him, it's Brad Holmes. So you got to make sure this man gets right.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it too, like, I know people are going to bring it up a lot, but even in like Hard Knocks, like, you just saw the way that he commanded the linebackers room. You're like, oh, this dude's like not fucking around. If he was like Derek Barnes, they were solo shotting him, and he was looking Derek Barnes straight in his fucking eyes. He's like, I will start a 6th-round rookie over you. I do not care. Because if you can't do it on the field, I'll put somebody else there that can. And I think that's important and still in this defense, especially right now, because you've seen the straw that kept breaking the camel's back every year was defense, whether it's injury or not. Like, AG was an experienced coordinator, but he pretty much had inexperienced talent out there. And I think especially after this divisional loss, especially after this Aiden Hutchinson injury, Lee McNeil injury, you're going to have guys that are pissed off, but now have experience, especially as a unit. So hopefully it'll balance out where it's like, okay, the players, obviously there's not a lot of veterans on the Lions defense side of the ball, but you have guys that are now getting close to veterans. And so hopefully that the time that they've had on the field can kind of counterpart like Kelvin Sheppard being a first-time coordinator, because it's almost been like AG, experienced coordinator. There's a lot of inexperienced guys on there, even if it's 2nd or 3rd year guys. But you look at guys like Kirby Joseph, Aiden Hutchinson, obviously Jack Campbell, you're looking at them to take like that prime step. Like, hey, I'm a leader of this defense now, because you look at it, you're like, Jack's on the come up for sure. Brian Branch, very good. But as far as like, even this year, you saw kind of like, okay, Brian was really good this game, but not quite Brian Branch. Like, now these years, like, these players are hitting their primes. This is where they're going to be, okay, pay me max amount of money because I deserve it. And I think that can really help Kelvin Sheppard. Like, those guys take that step, there's going to be a less digression than people think. Regression, I should say.
Listen, I think one thing people don't think about a lot, especially with coordinators, I know offensively, like, yeah, you need a guy with a mind that can throw, Ben Johnson-esque that can draw up all these plays and do it. I think like defensively, and AG had it, but we talk about like AG, he had this Lions defense top 10 without basically, the secondary was brutal. The corners, like, it was just, everything was brutal in that sense. One thing, like you said, Klotz, like with Kelvin, like, one, he like demands a room. Like, you see that clip, and I saw we posted it, and people in the comments were like, what's that have to do with being a DC? Like, listen, you have to hold these guys on the defense. Like, that is your defense. You have to hold them to a standard, and you have to it has to be held. Like, there's no give. You need those guys in the room to respect you and to be able to say, hey, I'm going to go out there and play as hard as I can for Kelvin Sheppard in this defense. And then the X's and O's come. But like, I think those guys all look at Kelvin as like, hey, like, I want to go out there and win football games for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a big thing as a DC, especially in the building that you have. And maybe, Jeff, that's why they didn't want to go outside, was because of the respect that Kelvin Sheppard has within those rooms there. Especially, you saw the linebackers room, him calling a player out. And these are guys that are vets. Like, Derek Barnes was in that video, like, big time dudes in there saying, I'm starting the 6th-round rookie over you guys. Like, if you're able as a coach, and especially for him, he was a younger coach at that time, to look these guys in the eyes and be like, I'll start a 6th-round rookie over all of you vets.
That clip is legendary, dude.
For him to be able to do that, like, think about what he's going to say to the corners, the defensive linemen. Like, I have an expectation if you go out there and play very good football, and if you don't do it, it's the next man up. And the X's and O's, that's going to come with it. Like, I'm very confident that if Dan moved Kelvin up, that he knows what he's doing with scheming and everything. And he's worked under Aaron Glenn for years. And AG said that he's been literally by his side, just like with Tanner, Jeff, like teaching Kelvin, all these different things. So I think he's ready to go on that sense. The one thing that does pump me up, where it might take time, just to, like, you're play calling now. He's never play called. So for him to be able to like now go out there first couple NFL games, play call, I'm sure preseason he will. And I think once he gets that down, this defense takes another step. And I think especially like, and he's going to benefit off a lot too, because like Brad is going to make sure this defense is good. Like he's going to go out and get defensive linemen. He's going to go make sure he has the corners and the depth. So like he's going to have another step up of a defense than AG had this last year, because the injuries now, like he has all those guys back. So it's like you have the dudes to do it, and I'm confident Brad will get him the right guys to do it. He's going to be able to go out there and be successful right away, in my opinion. Like
just
for
a
year
little,
one, I mean.
Little side note before we move on too, like we're talking about experience, and the one thing that Kelvin Sheppard definitely has that no defensive coordinator does in the rest of the NFL, like you think about former player, where did he play? Buffalo, AFC East. Who is he going up against twice a year? Tom Brady. So the looks that this man has seen, how he's had to game plan, right? He might have not been Fred Warner, but when you talk about installing, like I can promise you that's a good reason why that man knows as much as he does, because he's having a game plan for Tom Brady and go play up against Tom Brady for the most part of his career. So he knows what it's like to play against championship winning football. And that could kind of be maybe year 2, year 3. He knows how to game plan when you go up against the Mahomes, the Joe Burrow, the Jaden Daniels now because he's in the NFC, those type of players. So I think Kelvin Sheppard, he's not the dream situation, but he's far, did I say it? Far away from the worst case situation. I really do like this hire. I wouldn't say I love it just because it's not the experience that we wanted, but if you're going to go get a first-year guy, I'm happy they stayed in-house.
He said Rodriguez. Hey. What draft pick were you? 6th. And it ain't your fault, Rodriguez.
Doing what you're doing.
Him saying Rodriguez, that clip was like you can tell, like that dude can stand in front of a lock, like he can lead men. You know what I mean?
He's not backing down from anybody.
Let's call it what it is. In the next 2 or 3 years, he's going to be a head coach in the NFL.
Potentially, we got to see it first, Boone. We got to see.
I just think like we said with AG, like even without the schemes with AG, and like if he had the top 10 defense without the injuries, like we Jeff, I said it to you. We said it a million times. Like AG just had that mindset of like a player's coach, and like from what we know of Kelvin, he's a player's coach. Like you guys just said, he demands a room. He knows how to coach players. He's a player's guy, and I think like it's inevitable. Like we literally just saw Dan Campbell. I know these guys like Ben Johnson was what he was, but like we just saw Dan Campbell single-handedly like form 2 head coaches out of his staff. Like that's not just play calling. That's also sitting down with those guys that they said they do weekly meetings going over head coaching scenarios. How do I build a program or an organization up? How do I, timeouts, this, that, like Dan Campbell did that with those 2 guys for the last 2 or 3 years. And he has been very vocal. Like I sit down with these guys multiple times a week talking about this is what you need to do to be a head coach. If Kelvin is now in that program with Dan Campbell as like the next head coach, like this is what you need to do for the next 2 or 3 years. And guess what? Hey, boys, what are the Lions going to do the next 2 or 3 years? Win a Super Bowl.
They're going to
win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
If he wins a Super Bowl as the DC here in Detroit, and he's in that little Dan Campbell coaching tree for the next 2 years, someone's going to be like top 10 defense, Super Bowl winning coordinator. Kelvin, hey, come run our program. We would love to have you at the lead of our organization. So he's like in a spot where it's like it's a stepping stone for his career. That's where I'm like, I think the man's going to be successful. As the hours go on, boys, and I've had some coffee tonight. Don't know why I had coffee at 9 at night. I want to run through a wall for Kelvin Sheppard. I reached out to him. I said, hey, Kelvin, come on the show, brother. Maybe we get Kelvin Sheppard. Who knows?
Yeah, I knew you'd be excited, Boone. I knew you're drinking the Kool. You already had the Kool. You had probably a sip of Kool-Aid today, didn't you? I knew
every day. Wake up. First thing I do, take a shot of Kool-Aid.
No, I'm rooting.
It's on my bedside stand.
Like I am rooting for the guy, man. I am. Like I don't want this to be like. And I know there's people out there that root for things. What is it called? Can't think of the word for it. Usually I'm pretty good with this. I try to get you guys once a day with something. I can't remember the word for this, but it's basically you having a narrative and you're rooting so bad for that narrative, like you almost are blind. Like you start I forgot what it's called, but I'm not that guy. I'm not going to sit here and be like game one, be like, oh, fire him. I'm not doing that. My thing was always the experience. And I know he's a player. He's been around AG. Like, the dude knows defense. It's just being out there, calling plays, playing chess with some of the best offensive coaches. Like, he's going to be out there. And by the way, it's not just him. It's not just Kelvin. Like, we're not going to just sit here and it's John Morton too. Like, John Morton is under the same standard, like, and we'll get to him now. Like, and I know it's not official, but I have some things I do want to share with you guys because shout out to Dave Percat Nolan. Is it Bianchi or Bianchi? Bianchi. Okay, make sure I wasn't sure if I butchered that. A confirmation bias. Xavier D. He got me. Confirmation bias. That's why I love you, Xavier. He got me on that one. Confirmation bias. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have that. But here is Dave Percat. His tweet. It's a quote by Dan Campbell about John Morton. This was at the Combine in 2023. So this is what Dan said about John Morton. And John was a part of the staff. I think this was the first year of Ben. Yeah, first year of Ben. He was a top assistant in the staff, working with Ben, kind of as his first OC job, kind of like a little bit of a mentor during that year for him. And this is what Dan said about John Morton. He said, what Johnny Morton did for us, not the Johnny Morton, this is a different Johnny Morton. What Johnny Morton did for us on offense this year was pivotal, and it was behind the scenes. I'm not sure everybody understands just how important he was for us. And then he also said, someone asked the 2021, he said, Combine, he said, Lions brought in Morton to help after Ben first got the OC job. Ben said at one point, Morton added some Gruden influence. There's people out there wanted Gruden. Wow. Here's a guy, John Morton. So there you go. And then I have one more thing I want to show you guys. This was the year that John Morton was the OC of the Jets. And it wasn't like they didn't put up like historic numbers. It wasn't a great offense, actually, at all on paper. Like, he didn't have really anything.
Bilal Powell.
It wasn't,
that might have been the worst Jets offense of all time.
No, it was rough. This is what he did for these players.
Roster-wise?
This is what he did for these players, and after he was let go. But at the time, Josh McCown had a career high in passing yards and touchdowns. Bilal Powell had a career high in rushing yards and touchdowns. Robbie Chosen, career high in touchdowns, second most yards of his career. Wide receiver Jermaine Kearse, career high in receiving yards, TDs. Tight end Austin Safarian Jenkins, career high in receiving yards. Now, the numbers weren't I don't think any of these guys had 1,000 yards, but it was still in their respective careers. You know what that tells me, guys?
Yeah.
On this thing, and I'll say this: getting the most out of the players you have, which are important. He's been around this offense. Dan mentioned it, wanting to keep similar lingo, similar language. And I'm sure Goff weighed in on this decision. He obviously backed the decision. So that's positive. The other thing about this is look at his history. He's been in NFL. He's been in the NFL for a while. He's worked under great offensive minds, which to me is a green flag, a massive green flag. He's worked under Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, John Gruden, like guys that, by the way, kept him close to their jacket. So guys that are very respected offensively in the NFL, he's been with them. So this is someone that has some pedigree. Actually, fun fact, I think the time he was the Jets offensive coordinator, I looked, lines up with Casey Rogers' timeline. So I think they actually worked together at some point. Fun fact. But listen, to me, I like the hire. Expectations still say the same for me. But what I take away from this is they don't trust Tanner Engstrand yet. He's not ready, and that's okay. That's fine. He's still going to be a part of the staff. I think everyone assumed he was going to get more looked at to be OC. They feel John Morton's kind of that veteran presence. Maybe they didn't want two rookie coordinators going into the year. That's fine. But to be honest with you, I don't know what was discussed with Tanner. Maybe it's after John leaves, maybe for a head coaching job or, down the line, you could take over. But if I'm being honest, if I'm Tanner Engstrand, if I get reached out to by the Jags to be their OC, I'm out. Take an OC job, man. Go do it. I get it. You want a promotion. That's fine. But this tells me Tanner wasn't ready, and that's okay. Johnny Morton's he's proven, he's done more in his career, and he seems to be a bright guy offensively. So I like it, fellas.
Yeah.
There's first initial reaction. I like it.
I think that's a smart. I think on Dan Campbell's side, and again, this goes back to trusting Dan. And I know the Anthony Lynn hire, and today, like I know I texted you boys, and I was like, I wonder if this is like one of those hires like the Anthony Lynn, where he's like Dan's good friends with him, like that was coach with him a lot. And then as you start thinking about it and you start doing your research a little bit, like I don't think that's the case at all. The last 3 years, obviously in Detroit, he had a big helping hand in Ben Johnson's first year. Jeff, one thing I keep telling you with that year, and a lot of people might disagree with me or not, but I think that first year when Ben was taking that first OC job, I think Dan had a bigger helping hand than people thought in Ben Johnson's first year as an OC. Like I think Dan had a lot to do with play calling, planning for the week for the plays, all of that. Like I think Dan Campbell had a big helping hand in year one for Ben Johnson. And one guy I think, and was in the building that year was John Morton. So it was probably a mixture of John Morton, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, and those guys in 2022 when you started seeing the Lions offense turn around that really turned this thing into what it is today. And I'm not taking anything away from Ben. Like I think the last year with Ben, like again, Jeff, we say it all the time, like not any OC just does what he did last year. That was the top 5 offense of all time. So you might not get to a top 5 offense of all time, but this is a guy who, when this offense started to turn, he had a helping hand in it. And I think going into this year, boys, like Jeff, you're saying like Tanner to leave. Like I think they would have had a conversation with Tanner being like, hey, you're going to have an opportunity here in the future. Maybe Tanner gets a promotion at some point here in the coming future. Maybe this offseason. But I think with that going forward, like in that offensive room, you have Dan Campbell, John Morton, Tanner Engstrand, and Scotty Montgomery. So if people thought like, hey, Ben Johnson's gone, you're going to take a big step back. No, you still have a lot of the offensive minds that were in that room over the last 3 years that are going to be working and making schemes here. So I'm excited for the hire. It's interesting because it is different and not really anyone saw this one coming because of Tanner, but it is something to where it's like, hey, this is kind of a fresh face now. I know a lot of people are talking about, hey, we want to run the ball more. With the Jets, I know I saw some articles saying that was something that he didn't do, and that was part of the reason they let him go. But over the last few, like look at in Denver, boys, like what he did with Bo Nix, but then adding in the run game and the receivers that they had, like that was a miracle what he did. A miracle what he did in Denver with Bo Nix this last year. So being able to take that into Detroit, I'm excited to see it. I think it's a great hire, to be honest. I think it's a great hire. And you know what it is too, boys? Remember how I said, like, starting to get older coordinators in here? I know he's not, like, very old, but, like, vet guys in here who, like, really are at their point in their career where it's like, does he really care, like, at the end of the day if he becomes a head coach, like, right away? Like, no. Like, you could build an offense this year with him, and he could be here for the next 3 years, and you could have a top 5 offense. And you don't have to every offseason worry about him going and taking a head coaching job. Like, that's how I look at him, honestly. Like, I do think. And he might, but I could be wrong. But that was my first thought process because we talked about that last week.
Am I the only one, fellas, that's just completely unsold on this hire?
No, you're fine.
I just, and I'm not saying, oh, this guy's going to suck. But I look at this as this has to be like a bridge coordinator. Like this has to be like a bridge coordinator for Tanner. To your guys' point, he's coached under so many great head coaches throughout the NFL, but yet he really has not had a job as far as a coordinator position. Like I understand like the 2017 Jets, like that was the best like quarterback year that they had because they had Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh McCown, and rookie Sam Darnold in that 3-year span. But that's not saying a lot. And I think when you go to, okay, like Bo Nix looked great this year. I'm not saying this to your guys' point, like throwing it back in your face, Booner. But when I hear people say that, it's like, okay, there's Sean Payton. Like Sean Payton, how many quarterbacks have failed under him? When Drew Brees got hurt, Teddy Bridgewater went 5-0 under Sean Payton. Like Sean Payton is a quarterback guru. So I guess like it's good to have that guy that's been around those coaches. But for me, when you look at this offense is still going to be good. I agree with you guys. But I want a guy that's like proven it. If you haven't proven it, like be from the system.
He's from the system. He in 2022 he knows all.
Like,
that's where it's like people are
who is like been on the sideline calling shots. If you're not Tanner Engstrom, you look at the quarterback coach. You look at the Hank Fraley's, like a guy that's been on the sideline, been in those situations, has a feel in the locker room. He doesn't know this personnel. And so if you don't know this personnel, the chemistry here, I'd prefer a guy that has done it before and like consistently doesn't have to be elite. Like, you don't have to put up a top 5 offense, but a guy that's like been an actual offensive coordinator, play caller before. Like, passing game coordinator is great. But when you look at the great passing game coordinators that went on to be head coaches in the NFL and be truly successful, you're really only looking at Kevin O'Connell. Like, a lot of and I'm not saying he's going to be an absolute failure. I'm just not sold on this whatsoever. So when I look at it, I'm
That's
just
fair.
not truly sold.
That's fair, but like a couple of the things you're saying, like a passing game coordinator that's not successful, like Ben Johnson was.
I'm saying
Tanner
to just go
Engstrand
from
is,
passing
and
game
that's-
coordinator to a guy that can just command an offense.
That's what Ben Johnson did. Like, that's where I'm a little confused with, like,
Okay.
and
I
I get, because I do get your point
O'Connell.
like the bridge quarterback bridge OC thing. Like, I get that. I think that's fair. Like, obviously he's only been an OC once, but like you're like, I want an experienced guy, but then you're like, I want Tanner. But this guy's going from pass game coordinator to this but it's like, that's what Ben did. That's what you want Tanner to do. It's like, to me, it's more so like, I think the reason that Dan looked at this and said, this is a guy who is a passing game coordinator, who knows how to control an offense, who has done it. He was an OC in a pretty tough situation in New York. He knows the scheme. One thing that like flew over our head a little bit, and none of us really talked about, was with Dan. He's like, I want the same, like the same words, everything in the offense to kind of be the same. And he was here in 2022 when they built this offense around Jared Goff. So he knows all of the, what's the word I'm looking for, boys? All the lingo in the offense. Like, he knows it all. So like, he's familiar with this offense. Obviously, he hasn't been with Jahmyr Gibbs and JMO, but like, he's here with Amon-Ra. He knows like he knows the offensive line. He knows Jared Goff. Like, he knows all the lingo for the offense. He knows the schemes. Like, he's very familiar with it all. And honestly, I get it, Klotzy. Like, it might be one of those like bridge years. Then we go Tanner. It might be, but I still think like, at least for this year, you're getting an experienced guy. That is what Tanner is, because Tanner knows all of those things. He does too. Like, that was where I like that kind of sold me a little bit. What sold me a little bit was like, if you go outside, that guy does not know all of your schemes. He doesn't know the lingo in your off. He doesn't know any of that. The one guy that went and got knows all of that. He knows everything. He built this offense when they switched the offense over. He was a part of the rebuild of the offense in 2022. So it's like, you just got more experienced Tanner Engstrand that just went and did what he did with Bo Nix. So to me, it's like, and if it's a 1 year thing, it's a 1 year thing. But I do think like knowing like, hey, you need to go win a Super Bowl to get that experienced guy instead of having a Tanner Engstrand who has never called plays before. And I'm all in on Tanner. Like, I thought Tanner was going to be fine. I see the vision of Dan being like, we got the vet and he's going to be able to help. Like, you think Hank Fraley could have went and been the OC in Chicago. He probably knew the plan here with John Morton and said, hey, I'll come back for a raise. And he's familiar with John Morton. He was here in 2022 with them. These guys are excited about it, it feels like. So I think I see why Dan did it. I'm not disagreeing completely with you, Klotzy. I'm just saying I see the vision that he had, the reason he did it.
I just don't like, it's one of those things where I don't see what physically he's truly ever done outside of that 2017 season. Because it's like, he was still here when Anthony Lynn was here. Like, he wasn't gone when Anthony Lynn was offensive coordinator. And like, it didn't change then. It changed when Ben was the offensive coordinator. I'm not saying he didn't have anything to do with Ben, but
yeah, I don't think he was here with Anthony Lynn too, by the way.
Returning
That's
and
wrong.
turning into an elite offense. Like, I'm going to give most of my credit to Ben Johnson. I know you guys will as well, but I feel like helping Ben Johnson, helping Sean Payton when it's like, okay, these are the guys that are pulling all the strings. That's why it's just like, I'm not sold on it because I don't see what he's actually done himself.
Wrong thought process, Klotzy. He was not here with Anthony Lynn. If anything, he was a part of the, hey, let's move on from Anthony Lynn. Let's get Ben in
or
this.
Dan Campbell. My fault. Dan Campbell calling the plays.
So
they
like,
switched from Dan to, like, he was still
he helped
like
rebuild it. And then you're like, I haven't seen what he's done. He just did what he did with Bo Nix as the passing game coordinator with the rookie quarterback. Jeff put up all the things with the one of the worst Jets offenses of all time. Took literally those guys and put them in their best careers with one of the worst offensive rosters you could have. Like, it's easy to be like, hey, this guy hasn't had an opportunity to be an OC, but he's been able to like go into bad situations and take a positive out of them. And then like, to me, the biggest one of them all is him being in Detroit in 2022. And like, yes, he has coached under some of the greats to ever do it. But like, he was here in 2022. He knows your terminology. He knows your offense. He was a part of the rebuild of your offense.
Different at this point.
He was a part of Ben Johnson turning.
My point is
you're not listening. You're not.
I am. You're saying he was in here, but my point is when you're talking about
different players, but it's the same offense essentially.
But it's not, because it's not the same offense, because Jamison Williams is not the
built it
wide
around
receiver
Jared
two.
Goff.
Demir Gibbs
They
is not the
built it
wide
around
receiver
Jared
one.
Goff. You're at
They build it around Jared Goff, but the offense is not just Jared Goff.
It's been the same offense for 3 years, Klotz. They've just plugged and played new guys in the offense.
We've seen this
Come on
offense
now,
literally
I'm not
evolve
arguing.
into a top 5 offense. You can't say it's been the same offense. The players
It was
have
top 5
changed.
in 2022 when he was here. It was top 5 in 2022 when he was here.
Do you
just
do you
keep
give
throwing
Ben
out
Johnson
facts that
credit
are
for that,
wrong.
or who are we
Anthony
giving-
Lynn.
So
you're throwing out a lot of facts that just don't add up, to be honest. I
what
love
I'm
you,
saying
but
is
you're throwing out a lot of wrong facts here.
okay, so I go back on my Anthony Lynn point. Let me replace it with Dan Campbell. You are correct there. But going back to what I said, like, this is not just, hey, he's been here before. It's the exact same situation. No, it's not. Like, not at all.
He flipped this. He was a part of the rebuild of the offense.
He was,
with
but
Ben
so were
Johnson.
a ton of other guys. Like, so we're gonna like lean that on the hope.
All right, so you wanted Tanner, Scotty, and Hank all hired. Like, dude, they have all of those guys, and you have him on top of it.
If you're
like,
asking
that's
me,
a win. That's a win.
If you're asking me, I would have preferred all 3 of those guys before this hire. Yes.
I think it's a win that you have all of them on your staff still. That's
duh. But I'm saying you could have got a better OC.
If you're Dan Campbell,
you're
why would you
telling
just
me
be like,
you
hey,
could-
sorry,
you could
John,
promote
we don't
those
want you on our
guys?
staff. We're going to promote someone else. No, hey, John, come in and join the staff. We have all these guys returning. It's a
Join
win,
the
win,
staff.
win.
I do not prefer him to be my OC over guys that have truly been here, truly know
He's
this
done
system.
it 1 year, and Jeff brought up the points of what he did in that offense. Like, he's done it 1 year in his career. Like, those guys, none of them have even done it once.
I think the big thing to me, and as much as we have to be consistent here. People always use the term with Ben Johnson, although I disagree with it. I understand it, but I don't think it'll be Ben. But people are like, some people are just better off as coordinators. There's a thing in the NFL where guys are better off as like assistants. You know, like I think that's where Klotzy's coming from. Is like, is he a bright guy? Can he call plays? He did it in with the Jets, and I just pulled up the graphic, and he was successful. But like maybe it doesn't mean that Johnny Morton's going to come in. This offense is going to be electric. I don't know. I have confidence in it, but I don't think it's crazy to be like, why hasn't this guy been an offensive coordinator more than he has? I mean, is that like, I don't think that's a bad point. Like I have to be like, you know what? Maybe he could be a guy that's better off as an assistant rather than calling plays. I don't know. And you know what? We've seen it before. Like we always bring up the Eagles, and I know people hate hearing it, but they were, you know, a top 5 on offense and defense. And the next year they were 30th and 28th on both sides of the ball. And then the next year they're top 5 again. Like coordinators, whether people want to believe it or not, if you don't hire the right ones, which people are confident Dan does, I get that. Your season can change quickly. So like, Johnny Morton, do I like it? I do. Should there be skepticism? Like, I think it's fair to be skeptic with both of these guys because I mean, we have Johnny Morton with the Jets as an offensive coordinator, and Kelvin Sheppard, we have no evidence of him being a defensive coordinator before. So like there should be some skepticism with both these hires. Like I think it's fair to be like, hey boys.
Was that you trying to agree with both of us and calm this thing down? What was that?
No, because I don't fault people for pushback with that. Like I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's why I agree with Klotz. Where
like
if it's a 1 year thing and you find that out, like I agree with Klotz on that. I just don't think I think Dan thought this through on a side to where the vet side of him and the experience of him doing it. It seemed like Dan wanted to go experience on the offense with a guy that the comment that he's made multiple times. We want someone in here that knows the terminology, and he was one of him, Ben Johnson, and Dan Campbell. Were the three or four, and then obviously some other guys in that staff were the guys that built up the terminology of what this current offense is. Like those were the guys that worked together building it up. So, and obviously Klotz without some of the players, but like the terminology and the offense that was built was that in 2022. And he was like one of the ones that helped out with it as a senior offensive assistant with Dan Campbell and Ben. So that's where I think Dan, like, and you can have that side. I'll have like, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and be perfect.
No, I understand.
Like, I'm generally, I'm with Jeff more so to where I like it, but I need to see it because there is that side where it's like, he has had the 1 year, but the confidence level that I have on it because of him in 2022 and what he's been able to do with certain guys. Now he's had 1 year of play calling, and it's the same thing with Kelvin. On defense, never been a play caller. And Klotz, to be quite frank, it would have been the same thing with Tanner and Scotty and all those guys. None of them have been a play caller. So like if that's your hit on Johnny Morton, then it's like to me that's the same hit on all of those guys in Kelvin. It's like you don't know what they are as play callers, and like that's not an opinion, that's just a fact. Like if
Like-
that's going to be the hit on him, like
But
that's got to be the hit on all of those.
My
Like
counterpoint
Tanner,
to that, Boone, is be like your ultimate point with
no
Morton
points,
is
it's a
like,
fact.
no, you're absolutely right. Like I'm not saying you're wrong by saying that. It's clear as day that Scotty Montgomery, Hank Fraley, and Tanner Engstrom have never called plays before for this team. You can look it up, never have. Johnny Morton never has either. But when you look at it, to your whole point of who has been here through it all, like he's been here. It's all three of those guys before.
Well, I was gonna say
So
when you guys are going at it, and I'm just bringing this up to bring it up because it is something I did think about today, and I'm just throwing this out there. Why haven't we heard of Johnny Morton before today?
Because
and I'm just saying.
What was my
like,
first reaction? I said to you guys when I saw it in text, I said, "What the fuck is a Johnny Morton?" Like
well,
who?
That was disrespectful to Johnny Morton. Now,
I mean,
but
just
it-
because we haven't heard of him doesn't mean he's nothing.
well, I'm just
It
saying.
doesn't mean he's nothing, but it doesn't mean instantly.
Like, did
hey,
you ever
guys,
hear
we
of
got
the OC
something.
that Ben Johnson just hired? Did you like before? I mean, you didn't
It's
know
Ben
about Ben
Johnson.
Johnson
Ben-
until
I don't worry
until he
about
was the
play
run game
calling with
coordinator.
Ben
Dan
Johnson.
But
Campbell.
let me explain with that because I know that triggered. That got you. So let me explain. I don't want to. So before I don't want to argue. I just wanted to explain this. Kelvin Sheppard, Hard Knocks clip. Like we've seen the rumblings. We've seen how he interacts with life. Like we see it. We're like, yeah, this dude's it. Like Ben, we heard about Ben actually that same year calling plays. Jared played a lot better. Offense looked a lot better. Like there was that like you're like, okay, I see it. Like people were like, Ben Johnson, he's a talk of town. Ben Johnson. Like I haven't really heard John Morton. Like I'm just being honest. Like through this whole
senior,
last
he was the
year.
senior offensive assistant. No one knows who a senior offensive assistant is.
I think you're missing my point. Is
I know
like,
what you're saying. Like you should have heard about him, and I was the OC. I get it.
So why'd you just go back? Why'd you just argue with me then?
Because I mean, guys get. I think with coordinator positions, like guys get those jobs all the time. When you're like, who is that? You don't know. Like, it happens to me all the time around the NFL. Like, I've never heard of this guy, and he's an OC, and he ends up being really good. Like it happens all the time. Like you look at the Rams thing. Like there's just guys there who end up being great, and you're like, I never heard of this guy.
I'm talking about with the Lions, who we obviously know a lot of staff members. Everyone in the NFL doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like we know a lot of these guys. Like in that season, I'm just speaking personally. I did not see like the rumblings of like, who's this guy helping out Ben Johnson? Like I just saw Ben Johnson calling plays. Like, you know what I mean?
I think that's so more so because he was there for 1 year and then left. Like it was like a 1 year thing. That's my thought process.
That was just I'm
Tanner's been here for like multiple years and he's been with Ben. So you know, like
for
3, 4, 5 years. And it's like him, he was here and then he was out. It was like he snuck in the back room and then it was like he dipped by the time everyone started talking about Ben Johnson. He wasn't on the staff anymore.
I'm just my big thing in the conversation. I think people I still am going to try and figure out in the future at some point is kind of like what happened with Tanner. Was it Tanner admittingly saying like, "Hey, I like this position. I think I'm going to continue to learn," or was it more Dan Campbell being like, you know, I don't know if he's ready yet. That's something I do want the answer to at some point. Like I'm just curious. Like is he's not ready? Maybe it's just simply we don't want 2 rookie coordinators, which if I'm being honest with you, I think if I'm speaking non-biased, if I'm Tanner, like then he deserves to get an OC job then. Like go take one. Because like that to me, if I'm Tanner, I'm like, if that's
he may not have he didn't interview for one this offseason. He didn't get an offer.
We don't know what happened. Maybe he got reached out to. Maybe he's like, I'm
like Deshae Townsend. Deshae Townsend takes a DC interview. We didn't see Kelvin out there taking one. And then Kelvin gets the one here. So it's like it's just a weird situation. I'm interested. I want to ask you boys a question then, because this is where and Jeff, you're kind of in the middle on it. So I don't even know. This is more for Klotz. Like hates. It sounds like he just does not like the hire.
No, I like the hire.
No, but like if you're not sold, it's like to me, it's like you've seen Dan Campbell outside of Anthony Lynn. Every time a position coach goes down, he has home run hire. Anthony Lynn goes down, Ben Johnson, home run. Aaron Glenn, home run. Like he has constantly hit home runs hiring. Is it like to me, it's just like do not trust Dan at all because like to me, I do feel like Dan Campbell, like there's a reason he's doing this behind it. I'm genuinely interested.
No, well, here's the thing. I think
because you're questioning him pretty hard.
So I trust the Hank Fraley promotion. I trust the Kelvin Sheppard promotion. I trust all the moves he's made so far outside of this one. And because it's for a top 5 offense coming off next year, and what's going to be the focal point of this team? The offense. And this is a guy that has not coached an elite offense. Like Denver's offense was great. Denver's offense was not elite. Like the best playmaker they had was Cortland Sutton.
Rookie quarterback, yeah.
Rookie quarterback, absolutely. But I look at Sean Payton 1,000 times before I look at John Morton. So when I look at this, I trust Dan Campbell, but I also know that Dan Campbell's human. So I know at some points he's going to make mistakes. He's made at play calling mistakes twice with him and Anthony Lynn, and he's hit once with Ben Johnson. That's 2 misses to one hit.
I wouldn't say Dan's a miss. Dan was decent.
Why did he give it up? Because it wasn't working.
Well, he doesn't want to be the play caller. He never wanted to.
Because it wasn't going to work. Like
he did it for a little bit. Until he got Ben Johnson.
Where he said maybe I could do it. It's not bad. He had to switch play calling.
He knew
twice,
he was switching.
He found Ben Johnson, who is a complete.
He's just not. I don't think he's like truly a play caller. He knows.
He did not start doing play calls with the mindset of I'm going to be the play caller. He knew he was handing it off from the jump. That was not a bad decision. He had to do it until he got a new play caller in there.
Okay. Either way, if you don't want to look at that way, that's fine. But let's be 1,000% here. The play callers have changed 3 times. Yes or no? Yes. 2 of them were not working for the team. They had to go elsewhere. So if there's definitely a position I'm going to question, I'm going to look at the OC spot, especially when it's an inexperienced guy. So I trust Dan Campbell. Absolutely. He took this team to 15-2, but has Dan Campbell made mistakes before? Absolutely. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I'm not sold on it. I haven't been sold on everything Dan Campbell's done. Been sold on a lot of it, but not everything. So if I'm going to question something, that I think questioning this OC spot is definitely right. It does not mean I do not trust Dan Campbell at all. Every move that he makes is wrong. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know if this guy's going to be legit OC for this team because reasonably, when has he done it anywhere else? Like 2,900 yards with Josh McCown? 2,900. That's what we're hanging our hat on as far as this guy's done it before. But that's where I'm just not sold.
I think honestly, I think it's a good conversation. Like I don't think this. I know Booner, you guys went at it. Like, I think it's a good discussion to have back and forth about it. Like, I don't think anything's like I brought up the Eagles example. Like, both of these guys could be out in a year. Who knows? It's worth a conversation. Like, and I'll bring up too. Like, I'll say this about Ben Johnson. Like, fun fact for people that don't know, like Ben was already here. You know, like he was already here, and Dan empowered him. You know, Dan empowered him to be OC. But like Dan didn't go find Ben from another staff and bring him in. You know, he was just here. You know, and then like Dan was like, hey, this guy, he seems to be a smart dude. You know, Dan empowered him. But like in terms of hires, like from outside organization offensive coordinator hires, he just plucked John Morton back. He was already with the Lions, but yeah, like this is a big hire, man. Like after Ben Johnson departing, like that was awesome. It was a great time. Awesome offense. Is electric, historically great. It's like, yeah, this is a big hire. Like, yeah, I get that. I like it. Like I said, I like the hire, but I understand what's the risk. Like I talked about this with Tanner. Remember we had this conversation. Like I like Tanner a lot. Thought Tanner was next up for the job. But like in all fairness, does that guarantee he's going to be Ben? Hell no. You know what I mean? It's just the risk you take. And Dan's done pretty good with hires. I will say, I think he's a pretty good people person, but like, yeah, the guy's going to make mistakes. You know, like Anthony Lynn was a huge fucking mistake making that dude and offensive coordinator. Like, would you disagree with that, Boone? Like,
to be honest, I don't. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, Anthony Lynn was terrible. Anthony Lynn was a terrible hire. He hired him because he was his friend. It was a bad hire.
It happens. You know what I mean? The guy's human. It's going to happen. Bill Belichick's hired a lot of terrible coaches. Like, you know, Andy Reid.
Loading.
Yeah, he's hired some bad. But Bill Belichick's so great. It's like you just kind of fit in. Guys just work, you know? And then same with Andy Reid. It happens. He's not those guys, Dan Campbell. But my point is, even the best of coaches make mistakes. Like I said, it's something to follow. I like the hire based on what I've seen people talking about.
I'm confused with Jeff, man. You've got me in a pretzel right now. Truly.
What are you confused about? I'll answer it.
It's a good hire. I mean, but every time I bring up Klotz, he's like, Klotz is not wrong. So it's like, you're just in the middle.
The way you guys are arguing, it's like what Klotz is saying. Like, I get it. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, Klotz, like you don't trust Dan Campbell. Like, I think people in the chat, if they're saying the same thing, I get it. Like, I think it's fair to be like, do you not? You think there's one opinion on this? He's going to work. And if you don't agree with that, you don't trust Dan Campbell. Like, I don't think that's a fair way to look at it, to be honest. It's like you have to believe in John Morton or else you don't trust Dan Campbell. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, makes sense. No,
see, that's why I disagree with that. You know what I'm saying? I think it's fair. Like, if you were like, shit, like this is a risk, I get it. I understand it. You know, we're gonna. that's where I'm at with it. I thought I've made that pretty clear. But But I'll reiterate for you, Boone. I got no problem. We got time today. We got 19 more minutes. So as much time as you need, I will tell you. I will let you know.
It's confusing higher to me. Like the whole thing, this whole situation is confusing to me now. My brain isn't a pretzel with this whole thing. If I'm just being quite frank with people, that's all. I'm gonna pretzel here right now.
Why do you think it's confusing?
What,
I don't know.
What needs to be unpretzeled, Boone? What are you?
It's just. I feel like it was just like Dan has in his mind, he has a reason why he did it. He's been very clear, like he wants someone who knows this offense, and like he is literally a guy who's helped build this offense in 2022. And people are like, well, he doesn't know what he's like. It's just to me, it's like the guy has a lot of experience. He obviously hasn't had opportunities besides 1 year to be an OC in that situation. You can't use that against him. So for me, it's just like people are like, hey, we want all these rookie coordinators to get an opportunity, but then we're going to complain because he doesn't have experience. So it's just, for me, it's just more so like it's a confusing thing. Like I just don't understand it. Like it's like, oh, then the side of the people being like, well, he wasn't here this last year because he doesn't know the offense. Well, no, he does. He helped build it in 2022. So it's like, I'm just trying to figure out like, hey, what's the real reason? Is it just because people are scared going from Ben Johnson to someone else? And it's like, you were just more comfortable. It's like it's like when people try to do something new, like I'm just going to do what makes me feel the most comfortable instead of going out on a limb and trying something new. Like that's to me why I think like Klotz, you're feeling that way. And there's fans that are feeling that way. It's because it's like, hey, this is like going from Ben Johnson to John Morton. That's huge. Like that's crazy. And people just wanted to take the comfortable way out and go Tanner Engstrand. But it's like, hey, like this guy, he's called plays in the NFL for a year. He knows this offense. Obviously, he only has a year of experience of play calling, but it's like there are all these rookie guys that on the staff. It's like if Dan was going to make the right move, like to me, it's like Dan's the one in the building making these decisions. Like he would know if Scotty wanted to be the next man up to do that. I'm sure he would give him an opportunity. Same with Hank Fraley and same with Tanner. Like I feel like he has a handle on the situation over the last year or two. It's like it's not me being like, hey, trust Dan, but it's like, hey, like you've had a top 5 offense for 3 years. Like I'm sure Dan Campbell, another offensive mind in that building, has a pretty good feel on if these coaches are ready or if they want to be the next man up. And I'm sure if one of those guys stepped up and said, hey, I want to do it, just like with Kelvin Sheppard, I'm sure they would have had an opportunity at the OC job. So obviously there's something else to it to where it's like, hey, let's get John Morton in here to do the play calling, and then it's going to help out the rest of the staff get to that next level. Like that's where my confusion is a little bit to me. It's because the reasons that people are saying John Morton won't work, that's the same things like rookie coordinator, or he's not even a rookie, but like a play caller that doesn't have an experience, a guy that doesn't know the system. Oh, he does. So it's like every single negative about him. It's the same thing with all these other guys, except now you have them all in the building together, and Dan's brought them all together with one mind. That's how I look at it. That's where I'm a little like confused about a little bit.
So that's where you're confused on, Booner. For me, like I understood that Ben Johnson was going to be gone, but when you talk about John Morton, the only thing you can lean on about positive about him is he's been around great coaches, but he's been in the system before. Okay. Who else has? All of these guys. And they were here last year. When you look at what John Morton was doing, like he has not been with the organization consistently. So when I see like he's literally been I'm going right now. In 2007, he went to San Diego, we're talking about the college. Then he went to Washington. And then he stayed at Washington, was hired by the Jets, fired a year later, went to the Raiders, fired 2 years later, went to the Lions, and then he was with the Broncos. So it's like, if this guy's so good, that's where it's like, okay, why isn't a team been like, keep him? Why did the Lions let him walk in the first place if he was that instrumental? And that's where it's like, there's nothing that I could lean my hat on that I'm like sold on. When I look at Kelvin Sheppard, like to your point of like, okay, first year DC, you're worried about him. Obviously, I do have some worries about him, but I trust him. Why? Because I've seen what he's consistently done with the Lions and how he's developed them. I haven't consistently seen Morton develop anything. And that's where I'm like, I'm not sold on it. Doesn't mean that he's instantly going to go out there and this Lions offense is going to fall flat on its face. But when I look at it, I'm like, okay, I don't know what to expect. I have nothing like positive to be like, okay, he's done this before, besides the fact that he was here in 2022. But again, they let him leave. Like he couldn't have been that vital. That's where it's just, I'm not sold. I'm the farthest thing from sold from this hire.
Yeah, I got the people are speaking on this. There's things we missed also. Coach Walk, appreciate the membership. As always, member for 9 months. Happy belated anniversary, boys. 1 year. Congratulations, Coach Walk. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate you.
Shout out. 1 year, fellas. Crazy.
Jesus Vision, $5. We didn't know Ben or Aaron. Give Dan and Brad the benefit of the doubt. Appreciate that, Jesus, as well. SW Lion 26. I'll be more interested to hear Goff's public comments about Morton. Yeah, that'll be a good one.
You guys don't think Goff had a decision on any of it?
I'm sure he definitely did.
Oh,
Sure,
yeah.
Pretty big decision. I would say probably Dan and him were the two biggest voices on the next OC.
Yeah.
Shaft says, has the line success been more about the OC and DC or the GM and head coach? I think it's about all of it, to be honest with you. I think all of those positions, man, in terms of organization, mean a ton. So I think it's both. I know it's a cop-out answer, but it is. You guys disagree with that, or you?
I would say probably if you had to pick one of them, I would say GM and head coach, but it's not Bible.
Okay, that's fair.
It's close.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it. My biggest thing: sustained success, GM, head coach, quarterback. So I get that. I would give the swing there, but yeah, offensive coordinator and defense coordinator matter too. That's why the Eagles are back actually because of their coordinators and Saquon Barkley. Sick argument, sort of, but Booner's not wrong. This OC hire is not going to make a difference no matter who, because DC, Goff, Brad all signed off on the hire no matter who. Thoughts on that? Any rebuttal? No? SW Lion 26 says, if Dan Campbell gets his Morton hire right, he should be coach of the year based on that alone. Dave says he's got to prove he was a good hire. We will see. Mega Hustle says, yeah, we will see how it plays out. We only care about what the OC and Goff do in the playoffs. Well, that's fair. Better the hunt. If Morton isn't worth his salt, Dan will shake him off, and the next guy will be up.
Yeah, Tanner. If it doesn't work, boys, it's just Tanner up. That's what it'll end up being. So it's to me, it's that's where you still have Tanner in the building. If it's not a home run of a hire, guess what? We've already seen Dan move on from guys pretty quick. He'll just be all right, we need someone new, and then that's when Dan and Tanner kind of take over. And if it happens this year, Dan's going to start calling plays until Tanner's ready. And I'm fine with that.
John Hughes says, I think it's safe to say that Morton is an unknown. We also know he will have the tools to succeed.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see. SW Lion said this. How many times has the OC had 20 plus years of experience and coaching experience and been an OC for only one of those years? Yeah, we'll find out.
I have a hard time following.
That's the that's the thing. That's I don't know really what to say to that. You know what I mean? I don't. I think that's fair. Hopefully this he nails this one, huh? Based on the one example we have of him being an offensive coordinator, it wasn't this it wasn't the greatest show on turf with the Jets, but you saw the things for those individual players, they had career seasons. So that's all we have to go off of. Now, why hasn't he been an OC for other teams after that? If it was so spectacular, good point. I don't know, but we will find out. We will find out this year. I get that. But yeah, people have spoken about it. Steve Wild says if they wanted Tanner, it would be him.
Yeah.
He says Tanner has been learning for 3 years, homie.
Well, I mean, for talk about offensive coordinator,
right
though, he's still a young coach. He obviously wasn't ready. They went out, found another guy who they thought would. See if it works out with Morton. If not, I'm sure Tanner at some point will be the offensive coordinator of this team. If not, he'll get it somewhere else.
Yeah, because I think most people assume John Morton will be he'll be a head coach too. It's well, you never know. Like Kelvin Sheppard, never know. One way. That's why it's hard. How do you talk to Tanner and be dude, you'll be up next? It's well, how do I know? What if John Morton's the OC for the next 4 years and never gets a head coaching gig? What am I?
That's the point where if Tanner stays this year and he's not an OC somewhere, obviously there's something going on internally with that. Where it's we all thought Tanner was going to be, and maybe at the end of the day, we all were wrong with the Tanner thing. Maybe Tanner was never going to be the OC. At that point, it literally was just open, boys. We hyped up Tanner for 2 years. It was open.
But even Scotty Montgomery,
didn't get it.
People were hyping up Scotty.
Hank Fraley. That's where it's part of my point is these guys were talked about as OCs. Why are one of these guys getting promoted? There might be a reason behind it that we don't know about. I don't know.
Yeah. Steve says we needed a fat old white man because we see Reed's success. I think Steve said something before, not too many fat white OCs succeed. I think, hey, listen, he's not quite Andy Reid though. You know, like
I mean, Dable succeeded. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of like fat white OCs off the top of my head.
he's got a hell of a
Rare
stash,
breed.
though, man.
Usually, if you're a fat white OC, you're usually like an offensive line coach or something. Not on the sideline too much.
He's got a crazy mustache, though, man. He's got the goatee.
Arthur Smith's a big boy. He was an OC for a little
Mike
while.
McCarthy.
Yeah, Big Mike.
Yeah, Big Mike. I mean, there's some big fellas, man. There's some big fellas. I'm curious. I'm curious with the whole Tanner thing. We'll figure that out at some point. But hey, you have your coordinators. You got your staff figured out.
Need wide receivers coach. I'm pretty sure.
Need a wide receivers coach. So
that'll be interesting. Who they
Kelvin.
yeah, someone commented that. I mean, that dude.
Kelvin would look at that text and go, oh, put that phone down so fast.
People have to understand, man. Like professional athletes, not all great professional athletes can be good coaches. Like it's hard to teach someone to be as great as you. You know, like it's hard. Like
yeah, and it's a completely different perspective and just everything going from player to coaching. Like you have to deal with so much more for so much less credit and just like pay everything. Like hours, like coaches spend so much more hours in locker room, film room, everything than the players do.
Like Kelvin can
hardly ever home.
No, not at all. It's like that's why like the joke is like some of the best OCs are like they were never quarterbacks or they were backups. Like it's just sometimes it's not like oh go get Drew Brees to be OC. Like he ain't trying to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think he wasn't he like the substitute coach for Purdue one time or something, wasn't he?
Oh,
Drew Brees. I thought he coached.
Yeah, he was bowl game. He
for
was
a bowl
coach for a bowl
Drew
game
Brees.
like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just no. Kelvin's not going to be a wide receiver coach, man. He's not. He'll probably poach someone from some other organization. Do you see Liam Cohen's press conference?
Dude's annoying.
Hey, Trevor, hey, you're Prince, you're king. He's cooked.
No, he's screwed. He's screwed, man. No, he's.
I mean, Liam Cohen is a good offensive mind at the end of the day.
He's just,
he just is an awkward, weird guy.
He's just, yeah.
As long as you know football, I guess at the end of the day, like what's his name in Miami, just like all of his stuff is just like.
But he knows ball.
But he just knows ball, yeah.
But then
he gets the most out of Tua. They're not winning, but he gets the most out of Tua. I mean, I think maybe Liam Cohen could get some out of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I would think they have weapons.
It's just I always wonder, like, although it's not all about you can lead in different ways. Like there's Kyle Shanahan, there's Sean, there's Dan, there's different leadership. You can lead in different ways. But like I look at Liam Cohen and I'm like, what is his way? Like you stand up in a locker room and Josh Hines Allen's looking at Liam Cohen and he's just like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like even Kyle, like although he's not a rah-rah guy, like I'm sure he has his different way. Like I don't even know what Liam, like how that man would command a room. You know,
I mean that's gonna be the combo with Ben too, though.
Like, but I think Ben,
if
like
you're
Ben's
Tremaine
not,
Edmonds,
I don't think Ben's like not like he's not like a goofball. Like I think Liam comes off as like a goofball.
Those first two interviews, or at least that opening press conference and that social media goofball.
Oh,
Ben John, you could not deny. Hey, I'm not saying he's not a good football mind, but goofy, you cannot.
The
tell
only
me that
thing
Ben Johnson was not goofy.
No, the only thing.
Come on,
Cuts. I'll give you the Matt LaFleur comment. That was cringe. That was the.
I don't know if it was goofy. I don't know if it was goofy, but
no, it wasn't like, goofy. It was like
Liam Cohen was goofy. Like that was goofy.
Yeah, he's just like a goofball. Like you know what I'm talking about, Klotz, where you watch someone, you're like, this guy's just.
AG had a good one today. He killed his opening press conference.
Yeah, AG's with the Matt LaFleur. Like we can't act, and then the awkward silence, and he's looking around. Like that's goofy. Like that's so goofy.
No, Ben. See, that's where I disagree, Klotz. Ben was like that in Detroit. Like he acted like that.
It doesn't make it not.
You never said it was goofy in Detroit, though. Why didn't you say it was goofy a year ago?
We all talked about how Ben's a little awkward on camera. He's a little shy. This year he opened up. We all talked about how he is awkward on the podium and he's open. And now he's under the biggest moment. And he was bro.
But Klotz, this is where me and you go separate ways. I think there's levels of like goofball.
There is.
Like there's Mike McDaniel. There's Liam Cohen, and then I think Ben's like lower on that. Like he's not walking in going, bear down. Like, he's not doing that.
No, he did let out
but
a
he
bear
did
down.
it like it sounded like, okay, that's fine. Like it didn't sound like, what the fuck is this guy doing, man? Like this guy's a clown. You know,
I'm
like
just thinking about that Duval.
like he's like the way it's just the. And then he took the video. He's like, "So guy," he's like,
yeah, it's like oh,
Like at least Ben walked in. You're like, okay, like there's moments, but I don't know, man. If you're a Jags fan, you're thinking, dude, like this guy better work out because. Or you could be the Cowboys and hire Brian Schottenheimer, and Jerry Jones comes out and says, "I took a big risk." Literally, just,
right
That's
next
going to be
him, too.
tough.
he just strapped right next. I took a huge risk. Like, I mean, yeah, you did because you had no. You waited to find a coach. Everyone already had jobs. It's just dumb. Love AG though. He killed it today, man. He shut down the media. How many times are you gonna ask me about Aaron Rodgers, man? Like, shut the hell up. Yeah, something else. Like, he is built for that market. Although I hate the job. Like, I'm glad he got a job. Like, get that guaranteed money, my friend. But I hate the job. Like, the situation he's in, I feel bad. Because I don't want him to go somewhere like, well, they'll take care of him and he'll be in a good situation. But that dude's built for the media there. No doubt.
He was like bitching him around too.
Oh,
like,
bitching him around.
Asking,
Yeah. That's like, that was Rex
That's what
Ryan.
they need though, because
Yeah.
then they just won't ask the fucking question. Like, he just needs to shut the media up.
That was Rex Ryan when he coached there, though.
Yeah.
He just, those motherfuckers, no one was, they were like, all right, we know what this man's about. You ask stupid questions, you get stupid answers. Yeah, easy. Did you hear the glory hole clip? I think he said not everything's a glory hole, or he said something like that. And people were like, what?
He's just losing it. He's just losing it.
Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, he said something. And like, it's like, Jerry, it's another clippable moment. Ridiculous. Jay-Z says, saw New York Jets change their Twitter profile pic to AG as a Jet player photo. Yeah, and by the way, the Honolulu BS says, I thought Jerry was going to hire Kellen Moore. I thought so too. I thought that was a guarantee. I thought Kellen Moore
should have done it while he was there.
I wonder if Kellen Moore will have did he interview for the Saints job?
Yeah, I don't think. Can he? Well, yeah, they can.
No, they didn't have a bye week. They didn't have a bye week.
No, he interviewed because he interviewed for Dallas.
Did he?
Yeah.
You're probably right on that. I would have waited till the Super Bowl's over to hire him. I mean, he's
because the Saints are still open. I saw a report today that Mike McCarthy, like their first interview didn't go well.
He is tonight. Thank you.
He's interviewing. Okay, yeah. So I think Kellen Moore might be the Saints head coach because they said Mike McCarthy didn't work out.
That's gonna be fucked. The Saints are gonna be so bad. Oh my.
Yeah,
God.
it's a tough job. I had faith in AG to go there, man. That's like his he would have got something out of it. All right, Klotzy.
He would have done better than any of the other ones. I
That's
still thought it would have been a very, very low chance of him succeeding and being able to actually turn it around because it's hard for anybody to do that. But he had a better chance than Kellen Moore or Joe Brady.
It's true. Yeah, Joe Brady's like, I'm coming back next year, which is actually smart by him.
Don't blame him.
SW Lion says it's crazy that anybody thought Ben was going to go to the Raiders with no quarterback in a division with Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton. Based on the agent, Rick Smith, listen to the whole interview, man. He it sounds like he made a decision Monday, but I think in his head he knew where he wanted to go. That's just the feeling I got from it. Like I think his agent used other teams as leverage. I think the Jags were a more realistic consideration because that's what we talked about before. But I think he wanted to go to the Bears. But I think honestly last year, if they should have fired Eberflus, if they would have interviewed him, I think he would have been more swayed. And then you find out all the Cubs stuff. Like he's always had his eyes on Chicago.
Yeah.
Right?
You think if the job was open last year, you would have taken it?
I think he would have came back, but I think it would have been a tougher decision for him. I think the jobs that were open, it was like Chargers were great, but
yeah,
the way his agent was talking, I was like, dude, this dude was flirting he was flirting because Monday morning he made a decision. He was like, call the Bears, let's get a deal done. It's like, dude, it's like he didn't play no fucking games. All right, appreciate you all. A shout out to Easy. I will send you that interview. I gotta find that again. Someone linked it. Shout out to whoever commented on a video of ours and linked it. It was like, hey, did you guys see this? You guys actually put us on a lot of information. Credit to the chat.
Yeah,
someone linked it. I think Michael actually linked me something before. Michael Lucci's who's in the chat sometimes that I didn't.
He always has good stuff, man.
So, like, shout out to you people, man, enlightening us. But yeah, Kory Woods, Tyler Conklin, great show, great conversations. We argued. I mean, we hit a trifecta today. We argued. We had 2 great guests on.
Great show, boys.
Yeah, Klotzy and I tried to be the mediator, and then I just
One-way street.
okay.
One-way mediator.
Well, I'm not Molly. I'm gonna have an opinion. All due respect to her. But we'll get out of here. All right. Appreciate you. Yeah, that was in the shade. I'm just being real. I'm not that type of moderator. All right. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. We'll be back. Wednesday will be the doc. And yeah, love you guys. Get your merch.
Doc.
12.2K. We're doing good. Peace.
Peace.